Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Select Board meeting of September 20th, 2022. Tonight's meeting is being recorded on RCTV Live, Comcast Channel 22, Verizon Channel 33. The videographer for tonight's meeting is Rob. Tonight's meeting, I'm just going to give you a quick overview. We'll start with public comment. We'll move on to any Select Board liaison reports and then a town manager report. Of course, we met last week, so much has happened, but not that much to share here. We have a Class 1 license transfer approval with the Honda dealership on Markers Brook Drive. We're going to get an economic development update. We will get an update on the Business Improvement District, find out its status. Then get an update from the Cultural Council. We had an RFP issued for the purchase of real property, and we will open and discuss responses to that, followed by a discussion and update on the Senior Center exploration process. This is getting us to about 8:45 this evening. After that, we're going to close the warrant for subsequent town meeting. The board requested an update on Grove Street Lot 5, which we'll provide briefly at that point. Talk about future agenda items and office hours, and then on to approved minutes. So if I could first, let me just ask, who is here that would like to speak in public comment? So I'm seeing for a group and 3 individuals. Caitlin, anyone online that might be interested in public comment today?
We have one person online. I'm not sure if they plan on speaking or not.
Okay, so we have allocated about 5 minutes. Why don't we extend that to 10 minutes with the board's approval? Just ask each group, if you would, to speak for about 2 minutes. We ask that you introduce yourself by name and address, and then we'll move on from there. So let's move to public comment. Mr. McFadden, do you want to start us off?
Absolutely. Good evening. I have some arch fellows.
Got an entourage.
Carl McFadden, 33 Wakefield Street, one of the owners of SNL. I wanted to reach out to you because SNL is a running recreation program of flag football that you mentioned at your last meeting, 630 young men and women down there playing. And this is our 10th year, and before COVID we did a drive for the Mission of Deeds, and it was by far their largest turnout or fundraiser, I should say. This year we wanted to do the Ready Food Pantry. One side note, last night I went over the Ready Food Pantry. Probably the best people in the world I've ever met. I mean, what they do there is just spectacular. Unfortunately, as we saw this week with the Green Tomato closing last Friday, things are getting tough. And the resources are very, very, very low. So we decided to do a drive. And let the high school, we're partnering with the Reading High football team who just got out of practice, so they're like a little nervous about how they appear right now. I'm not sure they showered, but and the Reading High cheerleaders, and they're in the middle of their practice, they're not able to be here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to I think James Murphy's going to speak, just go over some of the details of it. And James, go ahead.
So our drive,
Introduce yourself.
James Murphy, 55 Haystack Road.
Thank you.
Our goal is to raise food, partnership with SNL, because we're so grateful for the new field that's been put in at the high school. We have our first game on Friday against Danvers, so we're really excited for that. We just want to show how grateful we are for that by doing a food drive to help raise food goods for the food pantry.
Colin Donahue, 67 Gleason Road. So we're going to hold it on October 1st at the new high school field from 3 to 7. Our goal is to raise around, probably over, hopefully 5,000 items. So that includes canned food, pasta, tuna, paper products, anything that can be preserved and donated.
Damon Centrella, 35 Grand Street. On Friday, September 30th, we will be holding a food drive at the high school just to support the food drive that will be happening that Saturday. And we hope to get close to 5,000 just that Friday so we can have more that Saturday.
Aiden Becknews, 1 Charles Street. Also, if you cannot make it to September 30th, you can drop that off at Tread, which is 6 Linden Street.
That's it. I think that's there. Plus, they're ranked 6th in the state, so they're doing very, very well. Their first home game. And the bus ride to Barnstable, that was it almost 2 days? It felt like getting there. 3 hours on last Friday there. So, if you have any questions, they're here. But I just want the community to really see what impressive young men the Reading schools are turning out. the best we have right here.
Thank you for coming out and thank you for this drive. It's a great idea and hope that it's extremely successful.
Thank you.
Quick question, is it?
Please, sure, quick question.
Carl and young men there, you mentioned good items, but was there a specific ask from the Reading Food Pantry? Did you ask, so you'll have put out a list?
Well, I appreciate, I apologize, I sent this to Fidel and he's gonna be sending it out in the high school is, Ariella, your new recreation director, made this incredible flyer, kudos to her, to be able to do that. And the Reading Food Pantry, did give us a list of the items they preferred. One of the things that paper products are very short supply, shall we say out there. But knock on wood, we have found a wholesaler that may be able to give it to us for a little bit of a discount. So we feel like we can handle the paper stuff. This is more of like, we're gonna concentrate on the food items. These are the best things for the
The questions from the board? Great. Oh, sorry,
No,
Chris.
just thank you for doing that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But thank you for organizing that and good luck on Friday.
Thank you.
Not that you'll need it.
Thanks, folks.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Benedetto, would you like to speak next?
Hi, everybody. Rosemary DiBenedetto, Haystack Road, Reading. I'm here to talk about Walgreens because it seems like we're headed in that direction and hopefully I can put some bumps in the road. Maybe 6 bumps. We have 6 parking spaces there. The first one would probably be for Amy O'Brien, who is the administrator. The second one would probably go to our new employee, Chris Kowalski, who is the center coordinator. The third one would go to Kerry Valley, the case manager. Fourth one, Elise Warren, the nurse advocate. We have a van driver, Joe, who's wonderful, and that would probably go to him. And the last one would go to our receptionist, Eileen. Those are your 6 spaces. Where are you gonna put the rest of the people? I don't care how you reconfigure the little bit of land that's there. I don't care how you squeeze parking spaces and change signage there. That building only comes with 6 spaces. That's even before you get in the building. When you get in the building, there's columns, there's probably about 20 columns supporting a 50-foot ceiling. What are you gonna do about that? Somebody did a drawing dividing up the area for space. It's worthless if you have a bunch of little spaces. They're not, you can say you have space for everything, but what do you do with these columns? We can't have columns when we're dancing. We can't have columns when the people are addressing each other. You can't bring a steel beam in, it'll be a fortune. In the newspaper tonight, it said around $7 million renovation. I'm telling you, it's probably double that. It's probably double that. Where's that money gonna come from? It's like opening a door and throwing the money out the window. So really think about what you might get the town into. There's only 6 parking spaces there. The police department take up quite a bit of the parking spaces back there. You have a bank, you have another business there. So you can't squeeze them out. It's not adequate for the people of Reading. Oh, and then if you go to the 2nd floor, it's like a tomb up there. There's no windows, and one of the rooms are huge, probably 100-foot ceiling. No insulation, no division. What are you gonna do with that? Again, it's more money.
Can I ask you to, we have to limit to 2 minutes. Can I ask you to wrap up?
I'm done, just so that you understand that clearly.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Last name, Pop. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry, I'm using the other one. Ms. Haley, thank you. Sorry. I was doing the pop side and I apologize.
It is my maiden name. Amanda Haley, 71 Tennyson Road. I didn't plan on giving public comment, but our website, readingrecap.com, was referenced here last Tuesday with some inaccuracies. We have not monetized any of our content yet on YouTube. You need to have 1,000 subscribers and 40,000 hours of views to be eligible. Our free and original content is not costing the taxpayers any money so I'm not sure why that was even referenced. Our office train depot camera is not a PTZ camera. PTZ, to be clear. It has 0 zoom capabilities. The only functionality you have is the exact same anyone at home can do watching this meeting stream, with which pixelates as you increase the image size. No less than 48 hours after public comment last week, a young teenage girl went missing in Reading. And it was posted on Facebook by her mother. I reached out to her to get more information, to see if there was anything our website could do to increase exposure. I found out she went missing at about 7:30 p.m. and was most likely somebody getting on at the train depot. As a parent of 2 young girls, my heart sank when I realized she could have walked right past our depot camera. But the footage cannot be played back after 12 hours has passed. Isabella and the other kids were fortunately found safe this past Friday. ReadingRecap.com has an events calendar for anything and everything in Reading that the public can submit to, from PTOs and fundraisers to ice cream Sunday socials at the Pleasant Street Center. I also appreciate Vice Chair Karen Herrick for being the only board member to share our Lafayette Trail video on her campaign page, as well as a photograph from our website to her page. If it wasn't for that video, that moment she shared with her daughter might have been lost forever. I encourage more board members who enjoy our content to share it out in the future as well. In closing, I want to share a snippet of an email, one of dozens we've received after our booth at the Fall Street Fair. The excerpt reads, "Thank you for this. How nice to have a non-toxic, non-political, all-in-one place for Reading Knights to go. Keep up the good work. Thank you." We intend to keep it that way. Thank you, and all of Reading, for your time, and we hope to see you Bruce. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. That was perfect.
I know not to go through my two.
Thank you. Lisa, did I see your hand as well?
Yes, please.
Please come up and join us.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Egan at 8 Oak Ridge Road in Reading. I'm here on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce in Reading. As I think you all know, we represent the business community. I'm also a resident. And I wanted to just share a few thoughts that comes from our board of directors on the proposed I'm not gonna say it correctly, styrofoam polyester ban? Polystyrene, thank you. And I did watch your recent select board meeting with a lot of interest to hear what was happening and what was planned on the matter, so that was really helpful. I know that many other communities in the area have gone through the process of banning that substance, and I also know that I was involved as the chamber director when the town banned plastic bags. My recollection of the ban on plastic bags was that there was a really helpful engagement process and listening session where many different channels, including the chamber and the town, our economic development director, worked very closely to touch businesses in a lot of different ways to make sure they were aware. Because depending on the industry, many people aren't on computers all day. They're working in their stores or their shops and their customers, preparing food, making products, services, whatever it might be. So on behalf of the board, I'm concerned that public reach out and engagement hasn't really yet happened. So I respectfully request that you consider postponing the article warrant, because I think it's really important that people need to be educated. I myself wasn't aware of the risk of these substances, and our point is not to judge whether styrofoam should be or should not be banned. It's to say that we want to act as a conduit and share the information with people, because knowing how difficult supply chain is for all of us and how expensive particularly food is, I'm concerned. I reached out to business owners, and many were not aware that this was a potential. And it's not just a matter of switching out a product. I think in some cases people might have thousands of these containers on hand. I know there is a plan to have there be an extension if needed, but I can tell you firsthand that our restaurants in particularly are really struggling. And I'm just concerned about the timing of this, where they haven't necessarily had a chance to absorb the information, understand why it's happening, and find out if their supplier can even provide something that's suitable and affordable and available. All of those three things are really uncertain in a way they weren't for a very long time. I also
Can I actually just to wrap up in a second?
Oh,
if I
sure.
could?
I work with other chambers in many communities, including Wakefield, and I know they recently went through this process. So I proactively reached out to them to say, what was your process? What tools did you provide? How did you reach businesses? And they're getting back to me with some of that, and I'd be happy to do that kind of outreach just to see what other communities have done, to just make sure everyone is informed and in the loop before it goes ahead to a vote. So I just wanted you to consider those thoughts, and happy to partner to make sure there's enough awareness and engagement on this topic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Caitlin, is there anyone else online that would like to speak?
I don't believe so.
Just a couple of seconds to get a last minute hand up. All right then, thank you folks for public comment. Sorry, my syllabus came up rather than the this evening's plan. Select Board Liaison and Town Manager reports. Are there folks that would like to deliver a liaison report this evening?
Yeah, so I did attend the RMLD meeting. So RMLD shared that they are significantly impacted by the Inflation Reduction Act. They consider themselves already in the fast lane for the transition to renewable energy sources. On the upside, there are opportunities for significant grants for the work that needs to be done. And also, I wanted to share that, well, two things, due to supply chain issues and some other grant mismatch items. The super fast charger at the library is probably delayed until Q1. They are working on a very interesting project on a Wilmington landfill. It's a 60-acre site, and it's an opportunity for solar farm. I believe it's a super site, so this would be a reuse.
Super fun site.
Be reuse of a super fun site for a community solar opportunity, which would be benefit all for town. So that was really exciting, and so that's what I have for that meeting. Thanks.
Thanks. So just a quick update, which kind of relates to a later agenda item. The Recalc Working Group met last evening with the architect, and we'll talk about that when we speak about the activities going on. But just to let you know that there was one outreach activity to get some feedback from various groups in town, including the members include the Council on Aging, the Recalc group that we mentioned, a lot of town facilities. Joe Huggins was there, Fidel was there. And it was a chance to kind of hear a little bit about the plan. We'll talk more about it later in the agenda. Fidel, anything? Oh, I'm sorry, Karen.
I'm sorry, my fault. Last night we had a very brief Killam School Building Committee, and I just wanted to share that the committee did approve the warrant article that is before us for town meeting. That's it, thanks.
Thanks. Fidel, anything in terms of town manager update?
I will do three very quickly. Our first financial forum is tomorrow night at the Reading Memorial High School at 7 p.m. We will have a special speaker, Sean Cronin, so please either tune in or attend. We have also scheduled 3 walkthroughs of the Killam School. We are going to be doing targeted outreach to town meeting members, but of course, it is also open to the public. They are October 26th, which is a Tuesday at 6 p.m., November 4th at 1 p.m., which is a Friday, and then November 5th, which is a Saturday at 8 a.m. We will obviously advertise for these, and I'll mention these in the future meetings. And the last update is that we are having the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs that is coming to Reading to celebrate the MVP grant. That is happening tomorrow morning at 10 at the Mallet Soms Morgan area, and it's across the street from us and Prep.
Awesome. A couple of things that we could. One, back to the financial forum. So this is an opportunity for the community to hear more about all the other communities in the Commonwealth that are going through some very similar things to what Reading is going through in terms of having a pretty substantial free cash balance, looking at some very substantial capital projects. And as it turns out, Reading is not alone in being in that situation. And Sean Cronin is going to talk about that and offer some advice in terms of how communities can think much more holistically in terms of their funds, expenditures, and other activities. And I with financial forums, we we get kind of the boards and committees that usually come, it would be great to get more individuals of the public who are interested in what's going on to participate in this if they can at the meeting, or if not at a recording, to watch it also. It should be some very valuable information.
It's at the high school library, there's plenty of room, and I believe it's recorded and broadcast live, yeah.
Awesome. All right, go on to the next agenda item. Class 1 license approval transfer for the Honda dealership on Walkersburg Drive. Gentlemen, I assume you're here to talk about that, yes?
Yes, sir.
Please, if you could come up to the podium,
Absolutely.
please introduce yourself and.
Yes. Hello, my name's Dan Loggins. I'm representing the new Route 128 Honda. Been in the automotive business for 24 years. Very big fan of the Honda product in the community. Family relocated out here for this particular opportunity, and I partnered in purchasing the deal. So, and I will be the owner operator in the facility.
Fantastic. And a familiar face, I think that you joined us at last time.
I did, I'm just with him, I'm with the corporation that's partnered with him.
Oh, great. Okay. And so before us is really just approving the transfer from Ira as the current owner, and then they are leasing things to you. Is that the arrangement?
Correct. So as far as the facility, the franchise in the business was purchased, but the facility property is on a lease, correct? Which the lease is currently with Ira, the business was purchased from Group 1.
Great. Okay, and in our packet, we have the approval that went through. We have the police sign off.
Right.
They're all there. Board members, any questions or comments? Karen.
So, thank you for coming. My question, who is Angelina Pillsbury?
She's at our corporate office. She is part of the filings to help out with me.
Okay. Is your name in this packet anywhere?
Yes, it is.
Which form was that
So
on?
if you go to
Thank you.
page 4, it says person responsible for daily operation.
Okay, great.
Fidel, any other comments, anything?
Not at all. You know, we Caitlin mostly has been doing a lot of coordination out of this transfer. I mean, we have been doing a lot of transfer of documents. Obviously, a background check. I believe Caitlin has stipulated some requirements for the transfer, but it is very similar to the last one in terms of paperwork that we received once you close. But that's my understanding is that the previous transfer was exactly the same. So no issues on our end.
Great. If no comments, Chris, do you have a motion, please?
Yes. Move to approve the Class 1 license for TTHD Wakefield LLC DBA Route 128 Honda at 88 Walkersburg Drive, Reading, Mass., contingent upon receival of the fully signed and executed lease and Section 58 Class 1 contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Any comments, board members, discussion? Not appearing. Let's take a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Those opposed? We're approved 5-0. Welcome to the community, and we look forward to great things.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, appreciate it.
All right, come back to our agenda. Next, economic development update. Erin, come on up and join us. So, board members, did you all have a chance to look at the presentation in the packet already?
Yes.
Cool. I'm wondering, Erin, if we can ask you maybe either focus on priorities or highlights. So assume we've read it, because we have. And maybe, if there are things that you really want us to focus on and think about, that would be great.
Great, and I wasn't sure if somebody could bring up my presentation or
Caitlin's is on it. Yep.
the clicker that I could use.
I think it's a verbal clicker.
Okay,
We went to it now.
I'll do my best, Caitlin.
I like the clicker idea.
You can pretend.
Voice activated, that's the term I
There you
want. It's a
go.
voice activated clicker.
Alright, so thank you for having me. I am Erin Schaefer, the Economic Development Director with the Town of Reading. As the Economic Development Director, I provide the following professional technical work. I lead, develop, coordinate, and implement the town's economic development action plan. I collaborate with community partners, stakeholders, and interdisciplinary teams of town staff. I serve as the town's business liaison. I write and manage grants. I lead and manage special projects, and I do a lot more. But anyway, I just wanted to highlight those kinds of things. Caitlin, can you go on to the next slide, please? So why do we have economic development in Reading? Again, economic development planning is proactively helping the community to be queued up for opportunities, and that's what I do in my role. And we do this because the town identified a need to diversify and increase its town's tax base through managed growth and development. Next slide, please. I want to highlight do a recap of the state earmarks and grants. This is FY 22, 23, and 24. The earmark in blue, which are FY 23 awards, are budget money, and the yellow earmarks for FY 23 are bond earmarks, which are discretionary funds. Next slide, please. And this is a list of the grants that I have worked on and received for both FY 22 and FY 23 for the town. I wanted to highlight that I also provided technical assistance last year that was quite significant to help Reading businesses access several $1 million worth of federal and state grants, mostly related to COVID and COVID recovery in specific business sectors. And then this year, I applied and received a Northern Bank Community Grant to support the work of the bid. I applied for an MDI, what we call MDI support for $25,000 from DHCD, which is currently pending, and a $250,000 Housing Choice Grant for planning work in Walker's Brook area, which is also pending. So we will hear back from DHCD and the state on both of those two pending grants this fall. Thank you, Caitlin. So these are the economic development goals that are written in the town's economic development action plan. All of my work relates to these goals. And for the rest of the presentation, I wanted to really highlight the work that we're actively doing right now. Next slide, please. And to provide some updates on these goals. So our first goal in our economic development action plan is to facilitate mixed-use oriented development here. Next slide, please, Caitlin. And Bob Lilisher, the previous town manager, and I presented last year at the Economic Development Summit, where we provided way more detail about our tax revenue that we gained from redevelopment in the downtown. Do you want to say it was significant? Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is a quick map of the 40-yard developments in our downtown district. The district is outlined in pink there. As of fall, they're a little bit old in terms of numbers, but it still gives you the general gist of things that redevelopment from those 5 buildings that I just highlighted on the previous slide brought in new growth tax revenue of $958,000. And that's really significant. Another way to look at that is that was $600,000 to the school department and almost $350,000 to the town government on an annual basis. We also had some other positive aspects that came from this 40-year smart growth development. Particularly, we had 192 new housing units in our downtown. That's really important from a business perspective. When I get prospective businesses coming to town, they want to know who's living in downtown and do I have a market at my doorstep. We also have 43 deed restricted workforce housing units in our downtown as well, again, to meet our 10% requirements. Won't get into the details there, but that was significant. And then we had some really beautiful first floor commercial space, retail space that was developed that was really positive for our community, among other things. Next slide, Caitlin. So the policy change that happened this town meeting was this. The smart growth policy was changed with these updates. And the changes adopted at April town meeting of 2022, so this past town meeting,
were really designed to slow down development in our downtown and limit density. And we believe that this signals a community goal of encouraging economic development outside of our downtown, since we've experienced so much development or redevelopment in our downtown at the moment. Next slide, please, Caitlin. Our second goal is walkability and connectivity. I really wanted to recognize the town's engineering division for making significant infrastructure improvements in the downtown. It's really made a big difference. And then I'm really looking forward to this project, which is the Haven Streetscape Improvement Project. We've been talking about this project off and on for a couple of years, and the last time we've really talked about this was when Beta Group came to visit the town and Economic Development Summit last year to show some of these preliminary design concepts. So we're excited about this project. This year is an opportunity to pursue, I think it's Article 16, town meeting warrant Article 16 will help position the town to apply for construction funding that's quite significant in the multi-million-dollar range. And so I'm really excited about this opportunity, both the funding opportunity and like really lining up the grant cycles this year. So next slide, please, Caitlin. What I wanted to show here in this really complicated diagram is that town staff behind the scenes have been working for years on this project. And what's really important about infrastructure work is that we consistently need to be working together to collaborate across town departments and also with multiple community partners. So in this case, when we're trying to pursue a MassWorks grant, we actually need a private developer to be under construction simultaneously. And so that is a requirement of the grant and something that we have been working on for many years to align the town opportunities with this private entity who will be under construction, anticipated to be under construction simultaneously as us to be able to qualify. So that public-private partnership really brings dollars to the community, but that alignment is really, really important. Next slide, please. I also want to refocus on the Eastern Gateway. We've been doing a lot of infrastructure planning there over the years. Federal, state, and regional partnerships are really important to help Reading accomplish its local goals. And the four projects that I wanted to highlight really are that the town is looking at Walker's Brook Lakeview intersection improvements, specifically putting in a signal there, while we were also thinking about and planning and taking next steps to look at a potential rotary at that same intersection years from now. And we are also looking at Walker's Brook corridor improvements. And all these things are really related to a neighborhood request in the Eaton Lakeview area related to the Walkability project. And I really want to highlight that we are actively working and responding to those community needs that were expressed during that time. On a more regional scale, which is really exciting for us, again, that state-regional partnership is happening. There's something called the Mystic Highlands Greenway, which I really highlighted in my memo. Senator Lewis is heading that coalition, and the town of Reading is participating along with several other communities like Wakefield and Stoneham, where we are actively looking to connect Reading more broadly to the community. And I'm actively advocating and using this plan to help this greenway actually connect through the Walker's Brook Drive corridor and into downtown Reading, so there are economic development benefits to us from a local perspective. Go ahead, Caitlin, thank you. Now I want to highlight Save the Date. This year's Economic Development Forum is actually going to be more of a public engagement session. We are really focused on having an interactive facilitated discussion to hear from the neighborhood. In 2019, we talked about this kind of overarching vision for what we were calling the yard. This particular area is where the DPW yard is, RMLD, Ash Street, New Crossing Road area. And in this case, we're really excited to bring Gamble Associates back to help facilitate this public discussion. And we promised in 2019 we would have this neighborhood level engagement, and we just couldn't with the pandemic. So we are now circling back around and really, really excited to have this opportunity. So again, Thursday, October 6th from 7 to 9 p.m. we will be holding this interactive public forum and discussion at 230 Ash Street regarding this area. We do really want to hear from the neighbors, specifically about land use, preferences, open space, mobility, and placemaking opportunities. Next slide, please. And you can skip on to the next slide, Caitlin. Thank you. So a lot of the work that I do is also branding and marketing Reading more broadly and specifically. I worked with the interdisciplinary team to help develop the new website. I also updated the business and parking map, which is located online, but I'm also really excited about this year because we have a number of new businesses in downtown. And this map is meant to help customers find businesses and help customers find parking in the downtown. I also provide technical assistance to the Business Improvement District Committee, which we'll hear more about tonight. And again, that participation in state, regional, and local partnerships is an important way that we brand on a more broad scale. Go ahead, next slide. Next slide, thank you. A lot of the work that I do and really enjoy is supporting local businesses. And you probably see me walk around downtown all the time. I connect businesses to resources and incentives. I lead and develop and implement business communication strategies for our departments as well. So for example, again, we have a lot of construction happening in downtown. So recently I helped our engineering department come up with a strategy on how to communicate to businesses specifically, separate from the more broad community-wide communication. And that really helps us do a better job in town, specifically because we understand what each individual business needs, and we also work to help accommodate so we have less business impact, negative impact, I should say. And we learn a lot by going door to door, business to business, and we do that a lot. Go ahead, Caitlin, thank you. Next slide. So that's my economic development group. I'm really excited about it. I lead and manage that group. We meet once a month. It's 40 peer communities of economic development directors. So we learn a lot from one another, from policies, we swap notes. It's really a casual kind of thing. But again, this partnership is really important because I work with subsets of communities for a wide variety of different projects. So that's really great. Next slide, please. And then last but not least, we do a lot of community building, cultural economic development. I want to highlight the projects that I specifically managed this season. We expanded the Bistro Table program. I hired an artist to do murals on rain barrels this year. And then we also did a pop-up park, which I'm really excited about, at 52 Hayden Street. We received a lot of comments, a lot of really positive comments about that park. Next slide, please. And you can roll through these, Caitlin. These are just some fun slides to highlight those things. I know that we are curious about new business updates. So here are the new businesses that opened this season, this year. We had Half and Half, which is a restaurant on Main Street, Mathnasium, Metro Credit Union, Kumon, The Style Lounge, William Ravis Real Estate, DiBiase Homes, and The Village Chiropractor. We also had a couple of business closures, Biltmore in Maine, which I'm excited to say will be Public Kitchen coming soon. We had Fusion Cafe closed, which is now Half and Half. The Natural Food Exchange moved to Stoneham, and that building is currently empty. And the Green Tomato just recently closed, as we know. We also had some business expansions. Fox and Fable expanded. They have a really big following, which is really exciting and interesting. We also have partnerships. Some businesses during the pandemic kind of reassess their businesses, and we had a salon partner with a different salon now, so she realized she didn't need the space that she had been occupying for 10 years. So that's kind of an interesting trend that I've been seeing of more partnerships recently. I also wanted to provide a quick update on vacant downtown first floor retail spaces. We have the Common District Meeting House that I know has been a really hot topic. The property is currently under construction and has received all permits requested to date. And then, as the town's business liaison, I'm in touch with the property owner. He's well aware of all the business resources and incentives that we have. And he also has met with our staff really consistently for a wide variety of things, specifically permitting when needed. So at this point, there are no other resources or specific services that we can provide as town staff to help him along. But that is the latest and greatest update that I have. They're still under construction. In terms of Public Kitchen, which is at 530 Main Street, they are also currently under construction. At Ace Flats, which is 20 to 24 Gould Street, that particular property owner is working on details of design and construction for the commercial units on the first floor, including preparing for permitting and construction. And the property owner is working to subdivide that retail commercial space. They weren't sure and looking at the market for a long time, looking for the right fit for downtown Reading, which I really appreciate. And so they have a prospective business for the larger of the two spaces, and the second retail space, the smaller one, is there's an active tenant search that's underway. They've met with many different businesses for that space. And some key, last but not least, some private investment. We know there are 3 40R developments that were approved by CPDC prior to the spring of 2022 town meeting this past April. That includes the Chronicle Building, 18 Woburn Street, and 16 Shute Street. So quick updates on those. The Chronicle Building is under construction, as you probably know, with the foundation permit. 18 Woburn Street building and permit is anticipated sometime this fall or winter. 16 Shute Street is a couple years out. That is the construction and building that we're trying to align our MassWorks grant with. And then 459 Main Street, 128 Tire is currently under review, as well as 25 Haven Street, Rite Aid at the corner of Haven Street and High Street. And both of those last 2 projects filed prior to the changes in the smart growth. So that is it, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Board members, questions, comments? Carl?
Thank you for the update, and thanks for the update on the vacancies on the first floors. And other than, he's working on it on the common district, I've walked by there all summer into the early fall. Well, it's not fall yet, but there's nothing going on. Has he conveyed what his hangup is?
He hasn't conveyed that to the town.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Nothing. Okay. All right. That in Gould Street you explained, so that's
okay. Great.
my other concern.
Other comments? Chris?
Thanks, Mark. And thanks, Aaron. I have an update for Carlo. I was by there last week and there was a ton of activity. Lots of banging, etc. People coming in and out. Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully something gets done with that. I can personally vouch for Erin going up and down dealing with businesses because I see her usually once a week walking around and
we go to
whatnot.
ribbon cuttings together.
Yes. I see you more than my mother, unfortunately. But yeah, I guess the big concern that I have, which you somewhat addressed, was Haven Street on Shute Street over there with redoing the streetscapes in this whole area. Because, as you know, they're destroying Haven Street all over the place over there. And then with the Green Tomato building, the Rite Aid, those kind of scenarios, like investing a lot of money into that downish area, the end of it right there, it's just going to get destroyed. I mean, they're just blowing through the road all like once a month over there. Everything before that, it seems, but I'm sure you have things under control on the back end, like you briefly touched on. I just don't want to see all this get improved and then just destroyed like a year after.
Yeah, we purposely aligned. We've been working for years on trying to align the 2 projects, actually, the water and sewer main construction, knowing that we were going to be in the ground, and then using that opportunity, should that opportunity come together, to have some alignment with, again, road construction and making some really significant improvements from a usability perspective, widen sidewalks and bump outs and opportunities for open space and programming spaces, things like that. So for years I've been working with the engineering department to try to align those things and align all the stars, which is
easier said than done. But we have certainly been thinking about that a lot. We know that matters.
Yeah, I hope so, because even the construction out here, all those brick things that all look nice and fancy are all destroyed and tar is going right over it. It's just, no one's gonna go out there and put bricks right now, but, I'm sure you get under control.
It's just part of what you're seeing as active construction, which is a little bit different from what the final design will be. But yep, the engineering department's also available if you have any specific questions on those things.
But thank you, though.
You're welcome.
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much for all you're doing. I think as someone who gets their haircut every 8 weeks or so at that salon right across the street from the Pocket Park, I have a view for a couple of hours every couple of months to see that that's really been used a lot during the summer, and that helps create a sense of place and more opportunities to interact downtown. One question I had for you on the grants, it was toward the beginning of your slides. You talked about a $250,000 housing choice grant for the Walker's Brook area. It actually just sparked something in thinking out loud that our planning and zoning staff are also working on a housing production plan update in February. So I wonder if there's an opportunity to kind of align those discussions too, so that the housing production plan incorporates whatever we're either doing with that housing choice grant or what we're talking about with Eastern Gateway, as well as the other projects like Oakland Road. So just food for thought.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to clarify that the housing choice grant program, even though it's housing, is actually specifically for funding the design and providing engineering services for infrastructure improvements on Walker's Brook.
Okay.
Less related to construction of housing.
I see.
However, infrastructure improvements need to consider what's happening in the background in terms of development. So that's certainly a way of thinking about things.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So I just wanted to draw everyone's attention back to your grant page, to follow what Jackie said. We had seen the prior grants before in the town manager's 6-month update. This page is amazing. I know we don't pay $600,000, and you brought in over $600,000, so kudos for Reading and lucky us. And I appreciate that businesses do need technical assistance. I know sometimes we all need technical assistance to get some of these grants done. So I applaud your efforts to get this done, and I'm very excited. So I think this is so important to be very specific about the value you are bringing in, and I appreciate that, and thank you. And keep up the good work.
A couple of questions. Wondering if you could, well, first of all, thank you. Very helpful to understand all the things going on. Two things maybe you could address. One is, I'm gonna call it kind of the walkable Reading. I know there was an initiative for lights and things down at I call it Chris's end of Haven Street. And I know that for a variety of reasons we couldn't do that. I'm wondering what other initiatives may be possible. And then the second is thinking about the common area of town. Literally the town common, sorry, I should say it that way. What might be possible there? The bear events, for example, have been, I think, pretty successful. Other kinds of things, and then one of the things that Carlo was talking a little bit about too is the idea of a farmer's market, and wondering what kinds of things we might be able to think about for the common area. So I know it's not kind of existing businesses necessarily, although it could be, but that might be a nice way to develop more community activity there too.
For sure. So a couple of things. One is that we were super lucky to be able to get a grant and work with the state to develop a local rapid recovery plan related to COVID, but it was actually really helpful for us from a long-term vision perspective. So there are, I think, 25 recommendations in that plan that are very project action-oriented and specific that address both areas. So I'd recommend referring to that. And then I know we have 5 minutes left on my speech, but I can roll it right over to the bid. The bid, I've been working with the bid steering committee, and the bid steering committee has been working literally weekly for several years now to try to move their organization along. And I think, the bid committee members can really talk more specifically about what their working on, including the possibility of having a farmer's market. We've heard that a lot. We need an entity to professionally manage that, and that's what it can do for the community, and I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know if you guys bought pamphlets as I'm putting you on the spot there. There we go. And so they have some pamphlets, and they have a PowerPoint presentation as well to talk a little bit more about those details. I would say that in my role, I do speak to businesses really frequently about trying to program the common space in particular, seeing if there's capacity to do pop-ups and things like that. And really, for the most part, there really isn't one entity or one business or even a combination of businesses that have been able to really pull things off. So that's why I've worked with Lisa Egan over the years to be able to do a little bit more programming in response to those kinds of things. Like Winterfest, for example, was something that we worked on last year, actually this past year, I would say last year, because that's when we really started planning, and then had a really great Winterfest this March, and that was the first time where we were really programming the Common with the Chamber, and the Chamber as an organization typically doesn't do a lot of programming like that on a consistent basis like BID would. So we have a lot of organizations that, other than the Chamber and the BID, we have the Rotary, we have the arts groups that do a lot of things in downtown. There are a lot of activities that are happening generally. I'm really excited about that because we have seen a lot of activity in the downtown in this past year related to a wide variety of events and programs. So still working on those things, but I think the BID entity will be really helpful in that regard.
Super, thank you. So in other words, I was a very good straight man for the next presentation of the
Well, thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Erin. We appreciate you coming in kind of, maybe a few times a year and just kind of sharing with us because we're all keenly interested in this. So thank you.
Thanks.
So let's move to the bid, if we could please. Bid, by the way, Business Improvement District. Thank you. We're so hung up on letters and names and things.
I did want to do a quick introduction of these guys.
Oh, please.
So this is Jim Freeman of Freeman Associates. And Jim can fill in all the other details. Business in downtown, and this is Tom Connery, also on the bid steering committee. What was that?
Slides.
Yeah, Caitlin will bring up your slides real quick. Go on to the next slide.
Ready?
Ready, please.
Ready, all right. As Erin said, my name is Jim Freeman. The company is Freeman Realty Associates. We moved to Reading about 12 years ago. We've been in business close to 40 years almost. Real estate development company, primarily. We manage properties as well. And we chose to be in downtown Reading. On the property at the corner of Green and Main Street, Professor's Market probably is more well-known, and Sounds Unlimited, who's been there for over 20 years, I guess. David's done that business. Tom Connery's with me, who was instrumental in the postmark project, and we're two of the members. Might be a little tough to read, but that's the rest of the committee up there in the small print.
No.
Thank you, first of all, for the opportunity to update you on what we've been up to and the bid has been doing. We are a steering committee, so we don't have a bid yet. We're a committee that's formed to help bring a petition in front of the board, which would authorize and create a bid. So we're the step before the actual action takes place. The idea of the bid grew out of the town's economic development plans and the Reimagine Reading public hearings that was had, a number of events that were initiated by the town. The idea to create a business improvement district really came from the business side, growing out of the interest we saw at those meetings, and a group was formed to try and work towards taking the necessary steps to present the petition to you folks to create a bid for downtown. This effort, just to reemphasize, is initiated by the business owners, the property owners, and really would be controlled from property owners. We get asked a lot, is this another town entity? And while we really appreciate all the support and don't want to push you folks away at all, we encourage the joint partnership. We do try and emphasize that it is a business-controlled and property owner-controlled group, and we're an advocate, in this case, for the downtown. That's what we really want to be promoting. We're actually looking for volunteers. You'll probably hear me say that more than once tonight. You don't have to be a downtown business owner or property owner to get involved if you like what we're doing, and certainly the enthusiasm that was a lot of the Reimagine Reading meetings. A lot of people had an interest in making downtown Reading a desirable and pleasant place to be. So everyone is welcome, and we are really looking for help. We're just kicking off here really in the fall, really starting our signature petitions. We've been reaching out almost a few test groups to try and assess with some of the larger property owners, some of the smaller ones, get a sense of the questions that were being asked, a lot of which got incorporated into the brochure you see there. That was really, I think, more last spring's work, all early part of the year. Since the summer, we hosted a Zoom conference. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, would you, volunteers? We are a bid committee, yep, we are. If you want to punish yourself further, you can go to our websites and see what we all have to say in our little videos, but that's it. So the volunteers, but the next slide, we're looking into what we've been doing, the summer activities. We had sponsored a Zoom call, conference call with a number of the members of the Hudson bid. It's been talked about a lot. They've recently won some awards, national awards for their downtown improvement program, and we wanted to learn as much from their experience and pick their brains as much as we could. It was a very, I mean, in a nutshell, over a period of 3 or 4 years, they went from having 30 vacant storefronts in downtown Hudson to 0. So that is maybe the most compelling message I walked away from that meeting with. It is a recorded, it was a little less than an hour, I think, and it is on our website. The website is downtownreadingmass.com. And that's, make sure I go downtownreadingmass.com. A lot of information there, a lot of more detail than I can probably take up your time with tonight. Hudson, the bid thing, again, I'd encourage you all to look at and listen to some of the business owners in Reading, in Hudson, with their actual experiences with the bid community, how it worked with the town, and how it helped their particular businesses. Excuse me. We also met with a number of residential owners. We had heard some concerns in our test meetings with folks that there were some of the 1 to 4 family owners had concerns. We ended up meeting with them and listened to their concerns and essentially modified our guidelines so that 1 to 4 families are excluded from the participating. By participating, I mean would be part of the companies or property owners that would be assessed the fee to help support the bid. So they would be an exempt property. And it was, you learn as we go through. We drafted the initial one, but after meeting with them, we felt some of their concerns were legitimate, and we made the adjustment. As Aaron alluded to, we got a $2,500 grant from Northern Bank. Really appreciate their support. It comes at a critical time. It's allowed us to hire some part-time staff. In fact, specifically, we hired Kathy Kinney, who works with the chamber, but as a result knows a lot of downtown property owners, and in turn they know her. But she's going to help with us coordinating the whole signature and the record keeping. There's certain details and thresholds we need to meet to guide within the state law, so that when we bring the petition to you folks, it's in order, and rather than rely just on our individual efforts, we wanted to have some actual staff, and that we expect will be a big help in kicking off our signature campaign. We're really focused on, as I said, we've done some test groups, but we're really focused on trying to get out. We have not reached all the people we want to reach. We really want to get out with a positive image. I know a lot of people will be concerned how many signatures you have and so forth. We are a private group, and we're taking advantage of that. We really don't want to get into numbers just yet. We've made some significant progress with the groups. There's 2 thresholds. We have to have 60% of the property owners and 51% of the assessed value. Both of those criteria have to be met before we can bring a petition to you, and then we will have the signed petitions to support and document that. But we're trying to stay very positive right now, and we think this is a good thing for the downtown and for Reading in particular, and that's the message we'd like to convey as we talk to people. Yeah, well, I'm sorry, the slide,
next
yeah.
slide.
This I have to, we'll back up one if you can. I'll say I stole this from Tom, and I'm not sure where he stole it from, but our analogy that we've used repeatedly as we talk to folks is you can order a plain pizza, but then some people like to get some toppings. And we'd like to think that we're the group that's going to provide the toppings. The town will provide you the basic pizza and the basic services, and our role is to supplement that and provide the toppings. So I'm crediting Tom. I don't know whether he wants to own it or admit who he stole it from. I don't know. I should make, in our guidelines, we have some hardship provisions too, because we do recognize these are some difficult times everybody's come through, so we're not trying to be insensitive to that. How can the bid help, I guess? It is assessing a fee of 0.002 times the assessed value of the properties within the district. As I noted, there's hardship exceptions, and our pizza analogy is there is going to be developed a memorandum of understanding which kind of defines the base level of services that the town provides, and then our goal is to supplement that with additional support and services. The things, placemaking is a word that comes up often. I smiled when I heard the farmers market and the beer gardens. Those are great events, and we really appreciate all the volunteers and the groups that have already are hard at work trying to support downtown Reading, and we want to support them and help them. We're not going to compete with anybody. We want to find ways we can meet with all those groups and support them, whether it be administratively. We learned from Hudson there was sometimes financial assistance for whether it's the street fair or a beer garden. We need a few extra dollars to get it over the hump and in place, and that's the kind of role we can play to help there with the placemaking. So a couple of items you already mentioned, a farmer's market. And again, a farmer's market really requires professional management. A lot of towns start and stop and start and stop. If you really want to establish it, it requires a concerted effort year-round, and that's something hopefully we can provide. The program itself will be developed by the property owners, and we'll certainly make everybody aware of it, but it is what the business community kind of can put forward what they think would be in the best interest of downtown. Our goal is to support and assist small businesses, grant and loan programs. A lot of times, some of the small businesses aren't even aware of opportunities they have. Erin does a great job, as she does in her walking around downtown trips, of making some of the businesses aware of things they might not understand. And again, the bid with a full-time staff can help support that effort. The proposed, I guess, marketing is the other thing I should touch on that's up there, and that is based on the premise that if we pool our funds, we can develop a much stronger marketing campaign targeted to bring people to downtown Reading than any individual kind of company, not all of whom have marketing budgets, but those who do, it's probably relatively small. So if we can use these funds, one of the key elements would be a targeted marketing effort, and I think we can have more pop with by a shared effort as opposed to that. This is the district that's included. It may be a little hard to see, but there's a dark blue line that outlines the area. It starts up here at the town hall and runs down just south of the tracks. And it's concentrated, it reaches over into Haven Street, but for the most part is trying to incorporate the properties that are along Main Street and Haven Street. Excuse me. Of that, it's a little hard to read, but there's 165 properties in that map that would be participating properties would pay an assessed fee. There's 85 that would be exempt. 1 to 4 family or single family residence, a variety of things. One of the things, the next slide, that we're pleased. One thing to really emphasize that we were pleased to have to kick off our fall campaign is the endorsement from the North Reading Chamber of Commerce. Makes good on our pledge that we're trying to work with people, not compete with folks. And we really appreciated that they saw that and were willing to give us the endorsement they have and recognize the entity for what it is, what we believe is going to be a positive impact at downtown. Did I say we need volunteers? I haven't.
Yeah, you did
One
mention
more
that.
time.
So I'm putting up the
I
count.
think I promised to say 3. Good, I got my quota in. Liz will be proud. Liz is our chairman who couldn't be here. But we believe this will be good for downtown Reading, and we really appreciate the opportunity to update you folks. I do have the pamphlets that are here if you don't have one already. Tom, I don't know if you have anything. I don't mean to monopolize it. You had any comments or anything you want to add?
Jim, I think you did a terrific job. A lot of preparation. I just wanted to say hello to everyone and thank you for the opportunity to offer a few words. Back in 2014, I had a vision to acquire the Reading Post Office. I began my journey of understanding downtown and happily joined this bid effort. I can tell you it has been a lot of work. Just like Jim said, it hasn't just been going out and asking for a signature, but it's been explaining the essence of what the organization does and how it would support the downtown. It's been our goal to make downtown a pleasant and enjoyable place to visit and for businesses to be attracted. And businesses need that economic support. I think sometimes when we break it down into, sort of apples and oranges, if every little business donates in a year $500 or $1,000 to individual causes, it's a one-off. But when we're contributing to a common resource of funds that help us develop real economic development and create events and opportunities to make our downtown better, things get a lot better. They could get a lot better in a really big way. So we're very thankful to the guidance that we've had from our colleagues at Town Hall and for all the members of the community, and we're pleased to answer any questions from you guys.
Thanks, Tom. Board members, questions and comments? Chris?
Thanks, Mark. I'm not allowed to ask any questions, vote, or participate in this because I own a business down Haven Street. So I'd love to give my opinion, which is rare that I don't, but I can't.
Okay. Could I ask a couple of questions, maybe a couple of comments? So I know that you guys are working on the effort and need the signatures and things and fully applaud and support that. I'm wondering if there are other constituencies in town that can support your effort. So I know you mentioned, I think Northern Bank already did. There are some other businesses that aren't necessarily in the downtown, but I think would get big advantage from a more vibrant downtown. And I'm wondering, some of them are large companies. I'm wondering if there might be a way to approach some of them. I happen to know of a newly acquired business that's not in the downtown that might be someone to talk to. I wonder if that's an interesting approach.
We're not bashful. We'll approach anybody. So now we'd be glad to names. And yes, I guess as I said, we kind of made some forays into some small property owners, some of the larger and sort of middle, to get a sense of different people's reactions. And that's led us to what we now hope will be a real effort to reach everybody and welcome things like that. There's to donate to the effort, you don't have to be a downtown property owner.
Yeah. So
be on the board, yes.
Yeah, no, understood. I'm just thinking that, there are synergies between Walkersbrook and downtown. And I would imagine that property owners in Walkersbrook probably could see some pretty good advantage, and vice versa. And I'm just wondering if there may be some ability to work with them also.
Absolutely, and if you looked at some of the very early maps we had of a district, it included the whole Walkersbrook. And admittedly, maybe we were all a little overwhelmed by how much we take on in the first bite. And it wasn't that we see that as a key element. We really like the idea that Aaron and the town has promoted of eventually linking that up. We got 2 anchors, something at Walkersbrook, something downtown, and some transportation links of all sorts between the two, and I think they can work together. It was just the group's feeling we needed to narrow the initial focus, get a beachhead, and the downtown was a priority. But I totally agree. A couple of the members on the committee who were with us were property owners in that area, so it's
awesome.
I think it'd be very much of a help.
And just one other thought, and maybe this is just kind of tooting the horn of Reading and thinking about some of the things we've recently done that I hope would be helpful to forming the bid and adding more vibrancy to downtown. You now have electric vehicle parking in the downtown. We've got some really successful events like Porch Fest, which has now happened multiple times. Another kind of great activity helping things, and I'm looking at my colleagues in Cultural Council and thinking about all the different things they're bringing, and the events on the Common, and just thinking about they're kind of tangible examples of what can happen in working together, and hopefully that can help your story. And I guess as an individual board member, if there are things I can be helpful with, and I suspect you may hear from other members similarly.
It's probably one of my notes that I meant to highlight more, but we really want to reach out to all those organizations. We applaud what they're doing, and it's exactly the kind of things. And our first question to them is, how can we help you if we get going? Because I think it'll be a two-way street.
Oh, absolutely.
Tom.
Other comments, questions, Karen?
Thank you so much for coming. I've been a big supporter of this since the dark days of the pandemic, and I'm always anxious to hear an update on how it's going. And I'm a small business person myself, and I was a sponsor of the Winterfest. And this is great, and you have to invest in your business, and absolutely couldn't agree with you more that pooling together and having a cohesive message that benefits all. I'm really excited about this. Good work.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I attended the Hudson discussion earlier this summer, which was really interesting, and kind of along those lines, I see in your brochure that there are 9 bids currently in Massachusetts, and so I looked them up, and it looks like there's everything from Boston to Hyannis, but just curious of your opinion. It sounds like Hudson, and please let me know if you think otherwise, is probably the bid with the that's in a town that's most comparable to Reading in terms of size, population types, that kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that?
We work with a wonderful consultant. Her name is Ann Burke, and Ann has experience with a number of the Massachusetts bids. Her knowledge about how to guide us and help us is deep and has been very comprehensive. She's very enthusiastic about the relatively new formation of the Hudson bid because of their enormous success. It wasn't only that they started the bid, but they enthusiastically embraced it, and it raised their town center significantly. People began to invest in their property. They were very interested in events and sort of the placemaking activity that happened on their streets and in their center. And so they came to us, very excitedly and have been very helpful. Not because of the best, just because they're relatively new and, shared enthusiasm.
Okay, thank you.
Kyle.
Thank you. I have the same conflict as Chris. I live and own a property in the downtown, but I'd like to speak as a resident, if that's okay. Thank you. So I'm gonna go here, but I have to.
Resident space.
So Carlo Bacci, 494 Main Street. I'm speaking as a resident. So question for the gentleman. The fee of 0.002, that's fixed for 5 years, I'm guessing.
It is. It does adjust as assessed values would adjust. It would ride with it up.
And then at the renewal portion of the bid, which is every 5 years, is it subject to the board to go up or go down, or is it?
I believe the board does have that authority. I'm not sure it's limited to 5 years, but the board controls it. But I think trying to be forthright with people, we wanted to make sure that's out. It's our intent, I think, to keep it fixed. And frankly, as you can tell by Aaron's slide with the amount of growth you just had downtown, we're going to do just fine riding along on the coattails there, and the assessed value is the one part of the number, and the 0.002 should be able to stay the same.
Okay. I heard a lot of engagement and through your brochure and you guys speaking about property owners, how many small business owners did you speak with who don't own the building that will probably get the pass-through of the
I
assessment?
don't have an exact number, but a number of some of the people on our committee are in that situation. And they do expect to get the pass.
Okay, but because you don't have has there been reach out engagement to those?
We walked up and down Main Street and not knowing in some cases when we walked in whether it was an owner we were talking to
Right.
or a tenant, and we want to interact with both.
And what was the feedback in general?
Nero's gotten a lot of business from us. To my personal surprise, these conversations have taken 3 or 4 times before someone feels settled either to make a decision or to think about more questions. But we have engaged individual tenants, property owners, and in general citizens that had questions about it. It has taken a lot more effort than I think any committee member would have.
I think the staff will help, and we've got a lot more people we have to reach to kind of acknowledge that.
Okay, thank you. My last question, you referenced Hudson a few times, and I was at the pre-COVID economic forum, I guess, or I don't know what it was. And Hudson was there to talk about their bid. This must have been in 2018 and 2019. And you mentioned 30 dark storefronts. Was that the reason the bid was formed, and you guys feel that the bid contributed to that, or was what do you know the
My own personal reaction
things?
as a property owner and a real estate developer, it seems like a pretty extraordinary number. So I'm sure there were a lot of factors going into it, not just the bid. I think as we talk to the bid, a lot of those property owners are on the committee and engaged with it and help support it, and they attribute a lot of it to that general, the spirit uplift that caused people to both invest in their own property, but brought some business in. But there had to be more than just a bid. I'd freely acknowledge that.
No, I understand that, but it was just mentioned, so
Yeah.
that's a lot of storefronts.
I'd agree.
That's a lot, and we don't have that here in town. So, and Mark mentioned some of the great things that we already do, and for me as a resident, other than the farmers market, which you said you plan on tackling, not we're gonna tackle it if we form the bid. Placemaking and this and that, and I get it. And that's what we've done these past few years with all this smart growth development and everything else. And, Erin and staff and have done a lot of great work. So I'm gonna stay open-minded, but we're not Hudson. Clearly not Hudson. We're a cut through. We have a downtown. We have a lot of great businesses, but I just don't know, as you keep going, what's gonna change the nature of how we do things in town. I know it's been done. 9 is not a lot out of 351 communities in the state. So I know there's other forms of this where it's a Beverly the Main Street program, it's not just bids, it's Beverly did a Main Streets program with bids, so it's a little bit different. But I like Mark's comment about obviously soliciting businesses outside the bid district for funding, because I know you can get funding from anywhere, not just the downtown businesses. So those are my comments as a resident. Thank you.
Carlo, if I could just interject and say that I think that the enthusiasm that you see on this committee, our bid committee, is representation about just how strongly we feel about continual improvement and the effort of vitalizing downtown. I mean, it is a sincere and demonstrated interest to look at what we are in terms of being very good and not being afraid to approach excellence. And I think that what we hear among so many of the businesses is that they would benefit from more foot traffic and more activity and more placemaking in the town. That's how we got to sort of the concept of the cheese pizza. I think actually we do it with pepperoni. But if you want a couple of items on it, I think professional management and some real support to all the volunteer efforts that happen here would make it even better.
I don't disagree with that. It just there's a cost benefit analysis.
Yep.
I just respond to one other thing. We're the the bid isn't existing yet, and there will be a board of trustees, and they will be the ones who decide what we can and can't do. So I have to hedge my words a little bit. These are things we'd like to do, we'd like to suggest, but in the end, there's a committee that doesn't yet exist will make those decisions, and that will be on the property owners.
Thanks, folks. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, let's shift to the Cultural Council, please.
We'll be calling on you.
Soon.
Yeah, okay. I'm Brian Kimmerer, I am co-chair of the Select Council.
You want the PowerPoint up?
If I the slides there.
Yep.
Can you show the slides?
Yep. Thank you, Caleb. We're gonna, yeah.
There you go, Brian.
All right, I did post a meeting in case we had a quorum, but we do appear to not have that.
Not quite.
Meeting to order anyway.
I think you can't actually call to order because you don't have a quorum.
Can't call it to order?
There's no official meeting.
Okay, so I thought I would give a very quick overview of the Cultural Council for anyone who's watching that might not. We are a local arm of the Massachusetts Council. Earmarks is the state legislature allocates funds to the Massachusetts Council, and they disperse those to the local councils. There's really 329 local councils in the state. We are one of those. And during the cycle, we, as a local council, accept applications for grants, and those close this year on the 17th of October. And then we deliberate on where the money should go. We're required to grant all the money every year if we can, which has been an issue with the COVID because of events canceled. The funds stay in the bank because it's a reimbursement model. So it's a good program because it's locals deciding where the money's going to go locally. And that's what we do. In this first slide, this is a very high-level overview of the financials from last year, which was fiscal year 22. We were granted $10,600 from the Mass Cultural Council. Additional funding of $8,000 was provided by the town. So we had $18,600. Because of cancellations the previous year, we rolled over funds and ended up granting $23,500 to 30 events. And events are, individuals can apply for this as well as organizations. And so it's quite a broad spectrum. Next slide. This is something I put together just for grins. They have data on the allocations to the local council since back to 1998. So just to see what the history was of this thing, I downloaded those numbers and put them in a chart. You can see it during much of the time we were bouncing along with 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. And in recent years, we bumped way up. That's the town giving us extra funds that has made that difference. Anyway, I thought that was interesting information. The extra support is greatly appreciated because these organizations have been suffering with lack of dues coming in and lack of attendance. Okay, next two slides. I won't read these. These are the 30 organizations that we have in the last year. We granted funds to them, and this same information now is available out on our Mass Cultural website, not the town website. They post this plus all the amounts that we granted. You can go look that up. Every year we're required to do a community outreach. This is in the next slide. The community outreach is used to decide on our priorities and our guidelines. There is a set of Massachusetts guidelines, priorities that we are required to follow, but we can set our own. And so, Caitlin, could we have the next slide? That's it. No, wait a minute. No, back one. My eyes are gone. Okay, that's it. The way we did that last year was put out a survey, and we had 118 responses. I will just touch on a couple of these findings here. Moving along, one of the interesting was only 17.2% had canceled last year, I believe. I don't have a number for the previous year, but I believe it was a bit higher than that. Hence, that's one of the interesting outcomes of this. And the other second one is the responders said they preferred in-person or hybrid events, which indicates to us that they're zoomed out. The totally virtual events are not interesting anymore, but the hybrid has stuck. And so that's probably something that's going to go on in the future, as well as the in-person. In the past, it was all in-person events. Hybrid didn't exist. So that's the results. You can read the other statistics on there. Moving on into the current session, we are in the current cycle for fiscal year 23. It opens September 1, applications open September 1, and they close October 17th. This is now all done online. You know, at midnight, the 17th, it shuts off. There's no calling somebody, sneaking in after midnight. The Massachusetts Council has adopted new software. They actually adopted it last year, and they're still wringing some of the bugs out. Their grants management system, it's new, and it's all online, and they keep statistics and post them online. In October and November, after the applications close, we get together and we deliberate and decide where the money will be allocated. And excuse me, that's in November, December. We have information meetings in October, November. This is a meeting where the individuals and organizations can come in and talk with the council and answer questions, give us a better feel for what their project is. And then in November, December, we have the voting meetings to determine the grants. January, the letters go out, the grants are finalized, and we file our final report. That's the current season.
Brian, if somebody wants to apply, exactly where do they go? Is it the town website, or is it your social media links here, or how exactly do you apply?
Get to it from the town site. There's a link on the town site that takes you to the Mass Cultural page for Reading Cultural Council, and on there, if you scroll down to the bottom, there is a Apply Now button, and that takes you to the Smart Simple site, which you have to create a user login with a password and an ID, and on that page is the application. So you can get there from the town site.
Is there a direct way also?
There,
Can you go to massculturalcouncil.org?
Yeah, it's masscultural.org.
Masscultural.org.
Look for your own local council. There's a search page. You can look for the Reading Council.
So if
we also have, if you look at the slide that's up there now, We have a new young fellow who is an expert in event promotion, Steve, and he is taken on the social media task, which I'm not connected to that. And he has put together a link tree. You can see this link tree. If you're not familiar with a link tree is, it's basically a page with all our links on it. And it takes you to it takes you to the town site, it takes you to the Mass Cultural site, it takes you to an article that we put on the Post, it takes you to the Twitter page, the Instagram page. It's got a bunch of links on there. It's all that link tree. And he has standardized on a handle of Reading Mass CC, which is on all these social media sites. So that's a go-to, one place that people can go to find all the links they need.
And if someone still had a question and it was before October 17th, can they reach out to you at this Gmail address, Reading Cultural Council?
ReadingCulturalCouncil@gmail.com if they need to communicate.
Awesome.
One thing that didn't make it on the slide is the allocation this year is $12,200 from the state and $8,000 from the town. Plus whatever rolls over, we won't know that till the end of the year, because even though the grant applications close in October, till the end of the year, calendar year, to put in from the.
Right. So you've got at least $20,000 to use for grants this year.
Which is pretty good considering, you know,
Great.
At the past chart, we're always stretching it. You know, we give people $100 here and $100 there. Okay, was it worth the paperwork? But we can do more than that now.
That's great.
Any questions?
Okay.
Yeah, so the art walk has been fantastic. I haven't seen everything yet, but you know, we have a display building over there, that empty Walgreens, part of them getting permission to take down the historical building, and what they agreed to was display historical pictures of Reading. So at some point those all disappeared. I'm wondering if Fidel, you could put the cultural council in touch with the owners over there. Would that be helpful to have more display space at this point, or something for next year, or?
Through the Cultural Council?
Yes, for the art walk specifically.
Art walk,
Yeah.
which is, actually Eileen Barrett has been in touch with them in last year, and did not get much satisfaction in getting access to the building.
Right.
And she said that you can actually open the windows from the outside if you have a key.
Yes, I saw the locks on there, I walked by.
But she
Yeah.
couldn't get through the bureaucracy to get access to it.
What do you think? Do you think they'd take a call from Eileen? She called you?
I think there's another item on the agenda that we can.
Oh, all right then. All right, well, stay tuned then. Stay tuned. Different year, different town manager.
Any other questions or comments? Chris?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I went to the Mass Cultural Council thing just to see how easy it was. And you just hit the search box, put Reading, and up comes the thing, and it's like you said, apply now at the bottom. So, a couple clicks here and there. How much is the 23 allocation? Did you say 20,000 or is it 12,200?
For this year, the state application is $12,200, but the town has donated $8,000.
So it's separate on this application process?
Those funds are, well, they're in separate accounts officially, but it's the same process.
Because
It's not a separate application.
Because it shows on their site that you only have 12,200 allocated. So, I mean, 20 grand is a big difference from 12.
Yes, I'm not sure how that goes through. Our treasurer isn't here tonight. I believe that site just knows what the state gave us.
Yeah. So here's our opportunity to let everybody know there's $20,000.
It's 20,000.
20,200, maybe more.
Yeah, that's a wide variety of programs you were able to sponsor. Like I saw discount theater tickets in there, you know, so I would definitely encourage people to apply. There's it seems like there's a broad variety of things that you can fund.
It's a very broad spectrum, and As I say, people don't understand that individuals, we have individuals this year that have applied and gotten grants. I know Susan McFarland's teaching online classes. Lee Carlson is doing the music porch, which is replacing the old bandstand that is gone. She volunteered her porch to have over at Memorial Park, have the bands going and perform.
It's your favorite.
Which they can't do with bandstand anymore. Yeah, it's a very broad spectrum of events and types of, and in the past, I don't think we did this year, in the past, the Science Olympiad was funded.
Yep, and there are a lot of school sponsored groups, it looks like, that are here too. So it's a great opportunity, there's money available, it's a great thing that you do, and thank you, it's awesome.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
No, just thank you. It's a great, I look forward to your presentation every year. I'm glad you have a decent amount of money this year. I know
It's a good thing.
that helps, it's gonna help everybody out.
We make people smile because we say yes and hand them money.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Brian, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is open and discuss responses to RFP for purchase of real property.
Awesome.
How did things go?
Yeah, and town council is on the line as well, just so you all know. So the just a clarification on timing, right? So we created this agenda on Thursday, because we had to, and the packet was created on Thursday. The responses to the RFP were yesterday at 1 p.m. So just FYI that the official responses were not included in the packet just because of a timing issue. I did want to share on the screen, Caitlin, if you don't mind, just Exhibit 1, the financial response, and I discussed this with town council. While the response is public, we recommend that the board do not opine, on how appropriate is the response or make any deliberation on the financial matters. What town council recommended is that on our next meeting, which is on October 11th, we schedule an executive session and discuss any financial matters should be done in an executive session because they could potentially harm the negotiating position of the town. But so just to say that we did have one response. It is from 17 Hardin Street. We only had one response, and the responses will be included in the packet for the next meeting.
Okay, so board members, we will not opine on this nor discuss valuations or things like that. If we kind of go back one click, if you remember, we sponsored an RFP 6 or 7 weeks ago, and even more, 2 months ago, maybe.
Yeah. So how just to bring back some context. This really started off with the instructional motion from town meeting that asked us to look at potential rentals, right? The rentals of property in Reading. We issued an RFP, a request for proposal for rental properties. We had one responder, and it was 17 Hardin Street, and there was a response of a rental figure. I think once the board discussed that RFP, there was an interest in issuing a response, a request for proposal for purchase options. We obviously did not know how who was going to respond, but we did receive one response. This RFP had to be posted for at least 30 days because it is mandated by Mass General Law because it's purchase of real estate. So the timing took longer than ideal, but it was because of the lead times required.
Awesome. So one thing we talked about was suggesting an executive session at our next meeting.
Yep.
Are there any other questions that board members might have about this, not financially related? Chris?
Thanks, Mark. To kind of piggyback off Rosemary's thing where she mentioned the 6 parking spots and whatnot. So in the packet, page 64, is the proposed new senior center with the bank and all the other additional 33 parking spots, minus 4 because those are out on Hardin Street. So I kind of don't count those, but that's just my opinion. I guess for me, the bank does not own a single spot other than over on Hardin Street. So every spot in that parking lot is ours.
So it is a municipal lot. We've looked, I've asked the question if there's any deeded spot to the bank, and my understanding is that there is not. I'll continue researching, but so far I haven't seen any deeded spot. That parking lot in the back is open to the public.
Yeah, because for me, it's just hard to believe that size of a building has nothing. I mean, that's just my opinion. I guess seeing the 33 minus 4, so that's 29 spots in the back laid out, and then blocking off the police station access that's over there now. I guess my fear with that is thinking that we have 29 spots to play with, which seems like a reasonable thing when the existing senior center has 27, so you're getting 2. I guess for me is how many new employees or people are going to end up having to be at the new senior center compared to the existing one to be able to support the additional spacing required. So if there's 10 employees at the current senior center, they're going to park somewhere. So you're going to minus the 10 off the 29 that we have here, or the potential of more employees and whatnot. I know you can say you can park on the street, et cetera, but so can you currently now, and that's somewhat difficult. So I guess that's my biggest fear. Seeing the layout, I kind of like it because I know parking is going to be the big issue over here, as Rosemary had alluded to as well. It's why would we want to stop talking about that then? Yeah, I think that the parking thing has to definitely be buttoned up for anything to make sense, at least for me. So I don't know about a proposed parking garage thing to be added on to triple the amount of spots that we have here. Seems like a win for everything to fix downtown parking as well as this scenario. But I guess for me it's going to come down to parking, obviously.
So I think we're kind of wandering into the next topic, which really is discussion and update on senior center exploration process, but they're related, most certainly. Are there other comments that relate to the RFP response? Again, non-financial or questions? So why don't we move into the next topic?
Perfect.
So discussion update on senior center exploration process. So I think if you kind of go back as we as town meeting spoke, as we as a board have been speaking, there's been a discussion of a realization for many years that the senior center we have currently is inadequate in many ways. It's inadequate as a facility in terms of program offerings. The number of staff is actually a part of that also in terms of the relationship between programs and staffing to be able to do it. So we started an exploration. We as a board formed the recalc, and we appointed members to the recalc. And that group has been meeting faithfully, once or twice a month, putting together a lot of information that includes benchmarking other communities, exploring questions like senior-only, intergenerational community center. And actually on the town website, there's a lot of stuff from recalc. There have been 2 newsletters. And a lot of community sessions have already taken place in terms of asking questions. What is it that the community would be looking for and would support? As kind of the culmination, in some sense, of that outreach effort, we put together a program with UMass, which is a survey that is going on right now. It closes at the end of September, Jean, 30th?
September 30th, yep.
30th, it closes. And we're asking community members to give us their input. You should have received yellow postcards to your home already, 1 per voter, basically, encouraging you to fill out the survey. There's a QR code. You can go to the town website. There are paper forms that are available at Town Hall, at the Senior Center, at the library. There's even an opportunity for folks who aren't able to do that to find another way to fill out the form. And we're trying to gather as much community input as possible. And all this was going along beautifully, is going along beautifully. And one of the things that I think we heard loud and clear, and continue to hear loud and clear, is what about that Walgreens building? What's going on with that? Wouldn't that be a great opportunity? And why can't we see what's going on? And it's been empty for years. And what can we do? What's the opportunity there? So Fidel mounted an effort and was able to speak with these folks. And lo and behold, there was the potential of interest. So the town issued an RFP, following up first related to the possibility of rental space and thinking even short-term at first. And we got one response, and the response talked about a longer-term kind of an agreement. And as Fidel mentioned, then there was a desire to not yet answer or do anything with that RFP, but perhaps see if there were some other options from any buildings, essentially, any real property, to see what people would suggest to us. And they came back, and we now have received one bid from that same property. And so now we're in this very interesting situation where we haven't completed the entire process we'd planned, but we also have heard back from an empty building downtown that could be very, very interesting. So the recalc group, kind of understanding that this was going on, formed a working group to try to pull together all the information that had already been gathered, to start thinking about this, to look at the space, and start envisioning what might be possible, and to see if this location, this opportunity could work. And so the kind of the steps that have been going on since then have been to let multiple people walk through the building to see what it looks like. And it looks like an empty Walgreens store on the first floor. There are no gondolas or things.
No.
And in addition to roughly 10,000 square feet on the first floor, there are about 4,000 square feet in a mezzanine. And so working with facilities, an architectural firm was asked to put together some preliminary drawings, not even drawings, sorry, sketches, what do we want to call them? But the notion was to try to understand, if we were to look at this as a potential space, what kinds of things would we be looking for, and what costs should we be estimating, so that we can understand what this opportunity might look like. And obviously, in our thinking, right now, this is the only kind of existing building that we'd be retrofitting, versus other options which probably would be more akin to a new building. It's a new space, new building, new activities. And the opportunity before us that we hadn't anticipated was to take action on this before we thought we were going to be taking action, kind of before the whole process went through. And the opportunity for the community is to explore this on a slightly accelerated timeline versus kind of what we'd thought. As a result, we're getting some input, but what I'd like to suggest to the board is it's time to get a lot more input. And the survey is input in the form of, what are you looking for? What would you like to see? And I think what makes sense, and now is in our packet and is now publicly available, already was publicly available, but is publicly available and easily found, is to look at some of these ideas and to come back with ideas on what are we looking for. So for example, one of the big discussions is, if we talk about an activity, how many people will typically do that activity? And on peak demand, how many people might do it? There's kind of a separate discussion. The reason being that if we say, well, we could have 300 people that want to come for a meal of some sort, do we dedicate that space, even though it might only get used once a month? Wouldn't make sense. So what we're trying to do is get an idea of what are the kinds of things people want to do, and the survey actually addresses some of this. How many people do we think might be there? And the council and the staff have been looking at this and trying to gauge, what does it look like based on past experience? We also have some baselines from other communities that we can look at. Baseline's not the right word. Benchmark would be the better word. What do other communities look like? What kinds of usage do they get, kind of utilization? And how do they manage it? Rather than saying, if we're going to have rooms that are based on peak capacity, we're going to have a lot of downtime. So we met last night, the recalc working group did, with a architect, and kind of continued this discussion. There are a lot of questions, and the community hasn't been given enough information to deal with it yet. So I think what I'm suggesting is that we broaden the outreach, maybe we start having some other sessions. I think what I would suggest is that we gather input on what is it that we want, and then work with some experts who can say, okay, this is the way that it gets delivered. This is the best way to do it. And again, based on how other communities do it as well. We did have a speaker this evening who raised some questions on parking spaces, which kind of highlighted to me that the community doesn't have enough of the information yet about what's being considered here. And it's great and valid and helpful input. And certainly parking is one of the issues that has come up regularly. There are others also. My comment is, awesome. Let us know. I suggest let us know what you're looking for as opposed to poking at this. If we now have RFPs in front of us that we could decide to act on, and we'll have a discussion in executive session at our next meeting. And the town certainly could decide not to act on it also. I'd be sad if we got further down the road only to find out that this is providing a lot of what we were thinking and hoping for, but it's no longer available. I would hope that we can do better than that. So that was a lot of background. Karen.
Thanks. Yeah, it was an excellent recap, and we had some really good public listening sessions this spring. So I'm just trying to, so would the idea be to have some additional sessions where we have an actual physical building and some proposed layouts in front of us that has the same questions? Because we heard what they wanted. So how do you see these going a little differently?
So I think that what we heard were the kinds of activities that they would like to see. I think that what we need to do to help think about how to do it is kind of translate that into how many people might be participating in those activities at a point in time. What's the level of interest? There are certain needs I'm sure that we can outline. There'll be some wants also. I think wherever we go, whatever we do, we won't be able to do absolutely everything. So it's always going to be a balance of figuring things out. The possible advantage here is that there's a structurally sound building that could be available with the only one, I think, based on responses that would be in the downtown. And it would be great to further understand how do we meet the needs of the community with that space.
Actually, so did that RFP, that RFP went to everyone? It was just out there. Anyone in the entire universe could have responded to it.
That's correct.
Okay, so it wasn't just targeted, and that's all.
Absolutely was not targeted.
Yeah,
Not
so we
targeted.
just got
Absolutely
one
not.
spot. Yeah, so it's out there. Anyone in Reading could have replied.
Correct.
All right,
Anyone
so
in
just
the
want to be clear about that. What about any thoughts on different forms for a different audience about if this could be? We heard different perspectives on what kind of multi-generational activities could be there and what kind of things could be like seniors only. Would it be worth it in terms of getting more engagement to open up a forum?
So I think the survey is intended to get much of that information. There are some specific questions. Would you like it to be seniors only?
Yes.
Seniors and others, even a community center.
Mm-hmm.
So, a community center would be a big undertaking.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's what the community asks for, then we would want to be responsive to that, obviously.
So are then you saying if we need to, and I was surprised, I took the survey and I was like, oh hey, this is labeled senior center, it's a lot more. And that's what I've been telling lots of members of the community. So you're saying, is that how you would envision gathering more information?
I think that's one piece. I suggest that, so now we have some first round drawings. I don't know how to describe them exactly, with some ideas.
Visionary.
Yeah, just kind of visioning a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, one of the things that we've been discussing is, how many square feet to allocate to each activity. And I'll be the first to say, I'm not qualified to tell you how many square feet you need for something.
Sure.
But I'm happy to opine on and think about how many people may want to do that activity and to look at information we have and to look at other communities to help estimate that. We certainly wouldn't want to put together something that wouldn't last for many years. Certainly at least 5. I would think at least 10, and maybe longer. So I think those are parts of the discussion. Again, we're hearing a couple of things pop through loud and clear, and I think we heard these early on, and we're giving feedback to this architectural group and just saying, here's a big concern. What can you do? Give us a vision. These aren't meant to be the final plans. That would be a much bigger activity, much bigger, scale of activity and, defined drawings. We're nowhere near ready for that. But if this were to take place, the process would have to be going through the board, getting onto the town meeting warrant, and the size of any kind of project like this is a large enough capital project, it probably would be going to the voters. Again, I'm trying to stay clear of financial.
And the building committee.
Oh, and the building committee would most likely be involved. Well, not most likely. By definition, they would be involved.
By definition,
Absolutely.
exactly.
So, other comments, questions, thoughts? Chris?
Thanks, Mark. I guess I'm just confused on the whole process because we're voting on Article 19 tonight to authorize us to purchase the building, yet we're gonna have discussions on a multi-generational center and everything else that's not even feasible within the building that we're purchasing. So I don't know how any more community outreach or whatever has to happen. It seems backwards. The only issue is, I understand, there's the timing. Stuff isn't gonna last forever. This is one of those same Meadowbrook Lot 5 kind of scenarios where something is on the table, we have limited time. But I guess I just don't see what the point of any of it is. I mean, we're voting on Article 19. It's going to town meeting. What's happening after that? We have a month.
So there's kind of the before, you mean after the warrant closes and?
Yeah, so it goes to town meeting in November and say town meeting authorizes to buy whatever scenario, whatever, or they don't. How is that gonna impact any of this other stuff that would have to be happening? And if someone if the survey thing came back that says we want a multi-generational center, whatever scenario, we're just gonna cancel Article 19,
Table it. So I think it's, the idea of putting this article on here was as an opportunity. And it wasn't clear what space we'd be necessarily talking about or if it even makes sense. But to give a preview of the warrant, it had to be there to let us know that it might be. We can take action tonight. We can leave it on the warrant and then based on community feedback decide timing's right, here are some numbers, go, or timing's not right, let's table it. We could consider calling a special town meeting at some point after November. And to your point, the notion of there's some time limitation. I think that we have a specific set of offers at the moment. It may be that if we say, hey, we're not ready until March or April, we may not have that option anymore. Or we may just be putting it up there and if something else happens, something else happens. So this is here to be an opportunity, possibly. And to your point, if it doesn't make sense or it's not ready or it doesn't make sense to the community, it should just be tabled.
I guess I'll just ask Fidel a follow-up then. How long do we have to make a decision on this? Is it 90 days, 180? What is the end? How long is this? How long are we allowed to say yes or no to this before it goes to they can change their mind status?
Yeah, I mean, town council is on the line, but my understanding is that because they are the only responder, we do have a lot more flexibility. But by I believe by law, they're only mandated to hold it for 60 days. But because they are the only responder, we can ask them how long they can hold it for.
And will.
I guess I'd wanna, does the 60 days end up going to town, when is town meeting in, the 17th?
It starts November 14th.
So I mean, it's kind of close-ish, so that's what I got there.
Chris, I don't wanna scare anybody with the word multi-generational. What I've heard from the sessions that I've attended was it's too small, the bathrooms are inappropriate for the population, and the programming is not where it could be. So.
Current center.
Yeah,
Yeah, the current
yeah. So, clearly, we're not putting a pool in this facility, and I know some people wanted a pool too. But, so I don't wanna, it doesn't have to be, a hard concept for people to get their heads around. If we're just saying, like, right now, that center is only open from 8 to 4. The parking lot is empty afterwards, the building's locked up tight, nothing's going on the weekends. So it could be as simple as saying, we're getting this great new resource, and in the evenings and on the weekends, or somewhere in there, we can offer other programs to complement, like, say, what the library's already offering. That's all I mean, that's all I think we would get by saying this could potentially benefit some multi-generational programs. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Alright. Cause it would use, I mean, an exercise room, a dance room, a function room, it's all like usable by different groups. Okay.
Sorry, I've spoken a lot. Let me let other members speak. Carlo.
No, thank you. So I wanna just confirm and make sure the public is aware that on top of the survey, that hopefully everyone fills out to the best of their ability, is that Recalc and its members have been going to other senior/community centers in the greater metro area to see, new buildings, older buildings. So all that information is gonna be on top of the survey results to kind of figure out, also with the current staff of the Pleasant Street Center, say, here's what we're doing now, here's what we wanna do because we don't have enough space. We have a waiting list for XYZ, there's other programming and, hopefully, in all this interim, the library can help and other facilities can help. Maybe the new RMLD space can help, but things like that. So it's just, I'm trying to keep an open mind that yes, parking is an issue almost in every facet of town, whether it's public or private. And we just have to manage it the best we can. So I'm curious to see what the survey results say. Curious to see what you find out in the field, so to speak, of how many square feet this building is, how many square feet that building is, how many stories it is. But for an opportunity like this, to have a building become available in downtown is pretty rare for us, as long as I've been living here, and I haven't been here that long. So I think we should flush this out. And to Chris's point, it does feel a little bit rushed, but to Mark's point, we can table it. We have other ways to help this along without losing it, so quote unquote. So I just want to keep going forward, see what town meeting has to say, because they're gonna have a lot to say, and just see, in mid-November, how that looks. And hopefully before that, we'll get more feedback and community engagement as much as we can. Not much time left, but I think it's a unique opportunity, just like, 5 lots was a hard stop, right? We had a date. This is a little bit different, but similar, that we don't have all the time in the world to discuss this, so I'm willing to see where it goes and not, say, well, we need another town meeting, which I'll have that on other warrant articles.
Jackie?
Nothing for me.
Okay. So I guess a couple things. One is thinking about, Recalc will be meeting and clearly, bringing a lot of the input you mentioned, Carlo, talking more about this. This was really, I think, our intent in terms of what they would work on. Again, slightly accelerated time frame, but this is kind of one of the things we were hoping for. Second is the Council on Aging also is going to be putting together some of their thoughts. Obviously, that's very important input to this. And again, I'm hoping focused on kind of what it is that what we need, what we're looking for, and just to make sure that we're evaluating this and evaluating other potential opportunities as well. This, whatever we do, again, I don't think will be perfect, but I do think we need to make sure it's going to meet our needs for a while. We learned yesterday it has 2 times the net square footage, usable net square footage of the existing Pleasant Street Center. So, that just gives you an idea of kind of, I guess magnitude, if you will. But that doesn't talk about programming and things and what would go on. So there's more work that needs to be done on that. My hope is that we gather a lot of input, enough that we can kind of reach something of a decision. We certainly can do some outreach to the bidder. And we as a group in exec session can talk a little bit more about the financial aspects of what's going on here. We did get some estimates that I think are in the packet in terms of just thinking about costs, based on where we are now. I'm going to try to. Sure, fire away.
Fidel, is there an opportunity on the second floor in the future? I can't envision what the roof looks like. Is there any opportunity with this particular building, from what you know, to expand it in the future?
We didn't really look into expanding it building wise. We had a conversation last night about doing usable terrace space, if you will. But I think the group that was meeting was torn in terms of do seniors really want to go outside in the sun, or it's too cold, too hot? So
Outdoor terrace, okay.
At the end, it was more seemed like maybe it's a nice thought, but not very practical. At this moment, we have not explored whether we can go up or expand the building whatsoever.
Is it a box with 2 full floors, like that second floor has a big white space on it? Is that because of roof lines, or is that just used for mechanicals or something?
No,
That's what I can't figure out in my head.
Yep, it's a box that is roughly 10,000 square feet on the bottom on the first floor, and then the back of the box, about half of the box basically, maybe not quite half, but close to 30 to 40% of the box has the second floor. So which
that's how it's designed.
Yeah, that's how the building was built originally.
Look at Google Earth, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, and in the original proposal that they had was it showed the Walgreens as it was laid out, which basically this mezzanine area was for their staff and for storage and more administrative items, where the first was retail.
So just a drop of color, the Council on Aging, I know, is talking about mid-October, I think, for kind of providing more thoughts on what's going on. And Chris, to your point, November comes pretty quickly after mid-October. Here we are in kind of late September. So the notion, I think, here was to just give us options. And some of them may not work, and we address that. If we don't have it as an option, then we can't address it. Then that just makes it harder. So that was the reason why the article was proposed here. Any comments? Kind of covered it?
Yep, thanks for having them do this layout. I think it is a big empty space in there, and this helps give you an idea of the things that could be, just for discussion purposes, and especially when you have those partition walls, which we have at the library, which is funny, like they're never used. They're always open in that giant community room. So it's funny, you spend all this time putting on this flexibility and they're almost never used. But that's a huge room. That's,
I think my office hours next week, I think I have only one side, but then you get a bigger crowd, so we'll have the flexibility.
Definitely.
So just kind of sense of the board comfortable kind of sharing more information with the community, let Recalc kind of move ahead with their activities as they were anyway. I think Recalc is due to present in October to the board, kind of their status.
Yeah,
that's what we said.
We had a few conversations. Right now we're targeting October 11th, but we're having those conversations with them. I mean, and to be clear, I mean, Recalc and the Council of Aging have been involved in this entire process, right? I mean, just like laying out a house, right? There are some disagreements in terms of where the kitchen goes versus the living room, but the members of Recalc and the members of the Council of Aging have been involved in this process, and will continue to be involved in the process. At the last Council of Aging meeting, they discussed about, narrowing down the recommendations, and then Nancy, who I believe is on Zoom, shared that at their next meeting, they will formally vote on like space needs, which will be helpful, obviously, for the architect to know and narrow down.
And when is their next meeting?
First week in October, I believe. Actually, I think I might be able to tell
Council
you.
on Aging?
Yeah.
I didn't put it in my calendar, but.
I thought you said recalc.
Oh, Recalc is meeting next week.
I want to say they were.
Council on Aging is voting.
Recalc is meeting on the 28th.
Oh, that's late, okay.
And
September.
Friday?
Of September.
Oh, sorry, yes,
Sorry.
okay, I was looking at October. That is, okay, that's it's a recovery day.
And I don't have, I don't have a council meeting date.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I thought, but I think we talked a little bit about the meeting and then some activities that might happen after the meeting, and mid-October being a more reasonable time frame for things. And, I think that the worst case, we've helped our thinking along quite a bit. And in the best case, there may be a reaction, one strongly in one direction or another. And somewhere in between, maybe is where we are too. So I think it's worthy of pursuit. It's a very interesting location, as we've talked about. I think it's an interesting opportunity if it'll meet our needs.
Looks like October 3rd. On the
Thank you.
PDF on the town's website for Council on Aging.
Okay, it's not on the calendar yet. Where are you seeing that?
Yeah, I think that's right. I could check.
If you go to Council on Aging, it says
Oh,
meeting
right.
dates. If you click on that.
All
It's
right.
different because typically on ours you click on it and it shows everything on the left-hand side. This is a PDF instead.
So actually, I can tell you precisely in a moment. The answer is
30?
Monday, 10/3. That's the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, I think we roll on. Next agenda item is the warrant, closing of the warrant.
Excellent, thank you. And Caitlin, we'll pull up, I gave a preview of the warrant, but I think, it'd be good for me to go through it again. We made slight changes from what is in the packet, mostly grammatical and formatting that Ivrea, our town council, who's on the line, help us do. So just going through it again, Article 1, right, is reports. So basically to hear reports from committees, that is on the warrant every year. Article 2 is to instructional motions, which will be deferred, and this is typically deferred to the last night. Article 3, it is to amend the FY23 to FY33 capital improvement program. This is on the warrant every year, and we'll definitely discuss in detail tomorrow at the financial forum. Article 4 is to modify, amend the operating budget for this fiscal year that we're in, FY23. And again, this is an article that's on the warrant every time, and we will again discuss in a lot more detail tomorrow at the financial forum. Article 5 is to pay any year's bills. We at this time do not know of any. So hopefully that remains, and this can be tabled. Article 6 is really the one that we made a lot of grammatical changes to. And it is the modifications to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Ivrea attended the bylaw committee meeting, and they had some suggestions in terms of language. And again, just to give another overview, we're asking for 5 different actions of town meeting. The first is to authorize the select board to submit a home rule petition that rescinds the 2001 special act that created the original fund that we have in place today. And within that fund, section 2 of this Article 6 basically says that all properties and funds held currently will be transferred to the new fund. So that's something that was asked at the preview meeting. Action 2 is that we're going to ask town meeting to adopt Mass General Law Chapter 44, Section 55C, to establish a new trust fund. Once that is that fund that section of Mass General Law is adopted, we can then create an affordable housing trust fund. But in order to create it, we need a bylaw that governs that trust fund, which is the third action, and that is to basically adopt that bylaw. We reviewed, if you recall, this bylaw in quite detail over several meetings, and this was presented to the Reading Housing Authority, and they had some recommendations as well. And the fourth action is to amend Section 3.31.15, which basically makes the adds the members of the trust fund into the terms of office section. And then action 5 is to authorize the Reading Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board of Trustees to file a declaration and certify as a trust in the registry. And on this item, just to give the select board, this was another request from the instructional motion of town meeting in April, which was to modify the way that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund was managed, and my understanding is that it has been a request for some time. Article 7 is the article that will discuss the Killam School. This article was the language of the article was reviewed by the MSBA, and it's very much approved by them, and we can't really deviate from it. At this point, the article has been voted on by the school committee and the Killam School Building Committee to support it. Article 8 is to basically requesting town meeting allow us to enter into a long-term lease up to 20 years for the carriers that are going to be on the water tank. So, we assume that there's going to be a lot of questions around this, especially around cell phone coverage. So we actually released the RFP for the water tank. It's going to be live tomorrow, but what it means is that we will have responses by October 25th. So when we hit the floor of town meeting, we'll know basically which carrier has responded, what is the rental amount that they have agreed to, and we'll have that information for town meeting. I shared with the select board at a previous meeting that after a lot of concerns about cell phone coverage, we have also chosen to issue a second RFP, kind of in parallel, because we heard loud and clear from the board that we did not want to sidetrack the process for the water tank, for the compost center. We feel like the compost center is more of a long-term process. There's a lot of things to figure out with regards to placement, and what the tower looks like, etc. But we just wanted to keep both process in tandem. Article 9 is to renew the senior property tax exemption, and one note that I wanted to note is that on section 3 in the packet, what it shows is, and I'll read it, that the select board of the town of Reading shall annually set the exception amount under section 1 at 150% of the amount of the circuit breaker income tax credit under section K of section 6 of chapter 62 of the general laws. So after discussions with our assessor, he recommended that we actually bring that down to 100% as opposed to 150%, and him and I sat together for a long time, just so I could understand it. So at the last meeting, the legislation shared that at the state level, the amount of the circuit breaker income tax has almost doubled. So with the passage of the next the passage of this increase, what would have been our 150 is actually it would have been too high of a tax break, and what his opinion is that it would detrimentally affect actually seniors because it would remove a lot of the taxable income that is considered in their income tax. So it all to say that he feels very strongly that setting it at 100%, given the new increased senior breaker income tax credit, is actually more than what was adopted in 2019.
Please.
Absolutely. He is coming and he will present.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
just a couple examples so we understand.
Absolutely.
Might even be worth coming to the select board first, just to get the information out to the community.
He will be at the select board on October 25th to set the tax rate. So that will be.
We could add that. That'd be
part of the conversation, definitely. And then Article 10, I think we reviewed last time, which is to provide members of the National Guard a tax exemption while they are on active duty.
And this was because this is National Guard as a gap.
Yeah. So what he explained is that this is a local option that we just never implemented, and that he has been recommending it to all states and towns.
And do other active members of the military, are they given this already? Or-
Yes.
They are. Okay, so this was a
they
gap.
are covered. Correct.
Literally.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This was an option that we had not adopted yet. Yeah, and I mean, and he said that in Wakefield, for example, there are four exemptions that he issues. It's not a tremendous impact on the tax revenue, but it shows support to our active military members. Article 11 is the expansion of the members of the Board of Health from 3 members to 5 members. One change that we did make is we made the sponsoring entity the Board of Health as opposed to the Select Board, and I think that makes sense since they came to the Select Board and really have been advocating this quite a bit. Article 12 is the bylaw request by the cemetery. By the Board of Cemetery Trustees to ban dogs in the cemetery. Article 13 is a home rule petition to extend the employment of the assistant fire chief by 1 year. Basically, he has a mandatory retirement age 65, which is in February of 23, and he would like to stay on and work 1 more year. As I shared with the select board, and this was asked by the bylaw committee, his retirement retirement monies are capped as though he would retire at 65. So he will not be earning extra credit, if you will, for his additional time. That is specified in item B of that article. Article 14 is to request the town meeting give us the authorization to borrow from the MWRA's 10-year interest-free loans, which is at $1.5 million currently. Article 15 is to allow the town to borrow for the Malia Soms Morgan stormwater grant. I'm sorry, stormwater project. The borrow amount is in our capital plan at $1 million. This is we're going to watch this article closely because I've been talking to the state to the federal delegation about when the announcement is going to come for the $1.5 million that we have before the federal government. We believe that if we do get that that 1.5. If it's in time, this article could be tabled. If it's not in time, then we would just simply not issue that borrowing.
So in other words, if that article, assuming it passed, then we still would not have to issue it if that grant comes in, federal grant comes in.
We can rescind the authorization, correct.
Right.
Yep, and Article 16, Aaron touched upon, and it is the money to complete that final design of Haven Street roadway. We feel like we are, you know, in a good place to apply for a MassWorks grant, but that MassWorks grant does require us to have a fully designed project, you know, a shovel-ready project, if you will. So this will get us there. Article 17 is what we've been talking about with the Parker Middle School roof, and it is to appropriate an extra $500,000, $2.7 million were appropriated in already, but given the climate that we're in, particularly with inflation, Joe Huggins has been getting the recommendation that 2.7 is just not going to be enough for that roof. Article 18 is to basically transfer money that we have currently sitting in free cash to the Smart Growth Stabilization Fund. This is a bonus payment that the state gives the Department of Housing and Community Development. I think in the last meeting it was asked, you know, how many projects is this for? And this sorry, it's in here. It is for the Postmark, Ace Flats, Rice 475, and 14 Chapin Ave. And it is roughly about $3,000 per housing unit. So that's how it's calculated. So obviously it depends on how big the project is, the bonus that we get.
Is this money already in our coffers?
This money is already in our coffers. It is sitting in free cash.
Okay, thank you.
And then our Article 19, we have discussed, which is the acquisition of a potential building. And there are two items, right? One item, one section of it, if you will, is for town meeting to authorize the purchase. And the second item is to authorize raising the funds for that purchase via a Proposition 2.5 debt exclusion vote. Article 20 is the polystyrene ban, which we have discussed in great detail at our previous meetings. Article 21 is the creation of a trust fund of $10,000 based on the gift by Mr. John Parsons, and it will be under the direction of the Council of Aging. Article 22 was brought up at the last meeting, which is for the town to adopt a mandatory charge per kilowatt hour in order to meet the requirements that will allow Reading to be a green community. I would like to say anything about that?
Yeah. I don't think we need to do this, but the way town council has explained it is it's let's do it anyway and cover all our bases. There's not united disagreement, and there isn't a consensus that we actually need to do this, but
So in other words, that the legislation is passed, one theory says that it's sufficient,
fine,
we
we're
don't
done.
need to do this.
Right.
The other theory is it's not yet clear, so this is kind of belt and suspenders.
Yes.
So one thing I would suggest is green community is a proper name, should be capitalized.
We'll make that change. And town council is on the line. I think part of it is that the legislation hasn't passed. So we don't know the official guidance. Evie, I don't know if there's anything you would like to add to that.
Yeah, I feel like this article is very proactive of the town. Hopefully the legislation will pass. The concern that I think I have with this is once the legislation is passed, there's going to be guidance on how to accept this provision. There will be regulations likely adopted either by the Green Communities Program or by DPU, and we just don't know what those are going to look like at this time. And so, in my opinion, I think the safest course of action is to anticipate that town meeting authorization will be required, but I can't speak definitively to it. The legislation itself has not even been adopted at this point.
So if it's not adopted as of the time of town meeting, are we still able to do this?
No, if it's not adopted at the time of town meeting, this article should be tabled.
Chris?
Thanks, Mark. I guess for me, it comes down to money. Like, what are we talking about that the charge that everyone's being charged? I guess we'd kind of have to know what it is before we would vote on it.
Yeah, and we certainly did that research because that was my question too, right? No, absolutely, that's certainly something that I wanted to clarify. So the we checked with RMLD, right? And basically it's for the average residential customer, right? It's a fact. It's a charge per kilowatt hour used, right? So we can't say, you know, everybody pays the same because it depends on usage. But for Reading, this is from Greg Phipps. The average residential customer is going to pay an extra 41 cents per month, or $4.92 per year. So it's a surcharge, and it's actually listed as, like, you'll see it as an extra line in the bill. But I want to say it's like 0.02 per kilowatt hour used. But it's hard to quantify that number because it's not a real figure. So it'll be 40 for the average Reading resident. It'll be 41 cents per month.
I'm not going to argue over 40 cents a month. It seems
Or 41.
41. Make it 42 if you want. I mean,
Not polite.
it seems. But I guess for me, I would just want everyone to know what it is.
Absolutely.
Because when you see it here, you think that you're going to be. It's currently 17 cents a kilowatt after all the fees, et cetera. Is it going to go to 19 cents? Like, that is a significant difference compared to just 40 cents total.
Yeah, 41 cents to the average customer in Reading, right? Obviously, Home Depot's going to pay a little more, right? I mean, but because it depends on usage. It's per kilowatt hour.
Carl?
Well, Chris mentioned it, but I think it should be in the article as an example.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. It will be in the background of the article.
Okay, all right, yeah.
So this is kind of a weird thing that we talk about, and it's real, because when we go through the warrant, there aren't any numbers, right? So it goes through and says, you know, you're gonna approve the Mayette's homes.
Yeah.
There's no number. None of these things have numbers.
Yeah.
They have to for town meeting. For the warrant, that actually, because they change up to the day of the meeting,
Yeah,
frankly.
there's the background section, yes, correct.
Background of the motions, yeah. Yeah, it'll be covered in the explanation, will be covered in the background. Should this pass before town meeting, we will definitely make sure that the motion is ironed out, and Erie has drafted a motion already, but we will have to see what it looks like.
And obviously, people can't vote on it until you understand what the numbers are.
And I guess are you saying also that the 40-something cents thing might not even happen to begin with? It's just here as a placeholder in case it has to happen?
So the right now yes, I guess that is the summary, right?
Can we, so if and when Green Communities passes, this is what the proposal would be. So it's more an issue of, does the legislation pass? Does the legislature get this done in time so that this town meeting can vote on it?
If the legislation doesn't pass, this will be tabled.
Timing is everything.
Article 23 is a citizen's petition. I think we mentioned at the last meeting that it's it was submitted by a resident with over the requirement of signatures that were certified by our town clerk, and it is to require that owners of all commercial buildings, basically in the downtown walking district, shovel the sidewalks by 9 a.m. following a storm. And as I shared at the last meeting, this has to go on the warrant because it was a citizen petition.
So can I suggest this? Why don't we think about where we may have questions or discussion? So what if if you look at the front page, does everyone have this?
Would you mind? I'm sorry. I ran those through pretty quick every I don't know if you had any additional feedback or comments.
Sorry, I'm muted. No, I didn't have any additional comments. I think you did a great job, Fidel.
So board members, any questions or discussion on the front page, which is Articles 1 through 12?
No.
No.
Okay, flip. 13 in terms of assistant fire chief for another year.
Nope.
14, MWRA debt authorization.
Nope.
15, the Mayette Soames Morgan authorization.
Nope.
16, Haven Street roadway design. 17, Parker Roof additional debt authorization, 500K.
Nope.
18, modifying transfer funds into the Smart Growth Stabilization Fund.
Nope.
Jackie, was that a,
It's
not
a
sure? Oh, that's a no, okay, just making sure. 19, this is the discussion on Harnden Street. Should we put that as a maybe? You may want to talk about that, or are we, where are we?
I'm good.
I'm good as well.
No questions.
Article 20, this is polystyrene, I think I'm hearing, we want to talk about 20. 21, the Laura S. Parsons Trust Fund.
Nope, good.
22, Green Communities Renewable Energy Surcharge.
Just did it.
Sorry.
Okay, no questions.
23, downtown bid, so this is the citizens petition about shuffling sidewalks.
I have just a question, I guess, if you want to address it now, we.
Yeah, so it sounds like the questions are gonna be on Articles 20 and 23, and I think maybe 23 is gonna be quicker, let's do 23 first.
So we have had multiple conversations about the polystyrene article. We are required to put it on the warrant. So can we just have new questions come up tonight?
Okay, hang on,
Yeah.
let's
Can I
deal with
go take a
23,
bio break?
and then let's come back. Yeah, so why don't we do that, so it sounds like this is a good idea. Why don't we take a quick break?
Alright.
Take a 5-minute break, we'll come back. It sounds like the discussion areas are Articles, I'm gonna suggest 23 first and then 20 to follow. All right?
Sounds good.
All right, so 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay, we will take a 5-minute break.
Thanks, Mark.
Select Board back in session. Okay, so where we left off, we were gonna talk about Articles 23 and then 20. So Article 23, Carla, you had a question.
Yeah, I guess as far as language goes, it's, yeah, I just have the cheat sheet, but Chris, could you pass me that? Yeah. if you want.
So I'm sorry, could you pull up the warrant to Article 23? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so because it's kinda, it conflicts on the cheat sheet. On the warrant article, it says, owners of the commercial buildings. And then within those leases, there could be a provision for the, I guess, it would count, but businesses, and that's always, part of a lease. Who takes care of a parking lot or a sidewalk, or the entrance to their business, right? So this warrant article says commercial buildings, which, commercial building most likely is gonna have a business, whether it's a service or retail storefront or whatever, so, and the cheat sheet just says, downtown businesses, business to shovel sidewalks following a snowstorm. So I guess it's just semantics, I guess, but, when you say property owner, that means the property owner or property manager has to come out and shovel the sidewalk. And if they don't have an agreement with the business owner, who is the onus fall on? I guess, not being privy to the leases.
Yeah, I think, and we'll defer to Avery in a second, but I believe because it's a citizen's petition, it stands as written. And during discussion at town meeting, there may be people that offer suggestions, amendments, and other ideas. Do I have that right, Avery?
Absolutely, we are required to put it on the warrant as written.
Yeah, I get that, I'm in favor of it, to be honest with you, but I just don't wanna.
Yeah, so I think there were a couple of comments even at the last meeting too, about understanding, what's going on and why and who and how. And at town meeting, that's good discussion of it. But from our perspective, this is how it was submitted, this is how it has to be on the warrant.
Yeah, and I forget who made the comment last time, you're right, we did touch upon it about the Bobcat going through downtown. And, my building's on a corner, and that leads to Dunkin' Donuts, very popular destination. So I have a lot of sidewalk, I don't have just like the front. So when that Bobcat goes through the last time, they don't come out for another inch or 2 inches. You know what I mean? There's plowing, the plows push snow into the sidewalk, into the curbs. So it's kinda, I guess we'll have to work on it at town meeting because if someone said, I forget who, like, well, the Bobcat does it. Like, no, not to the bare pavement. No, they don't.
Yeah. And, another piece of this too is that many communities don't plow commercial areas at all.
Correct.
But that's something that the town of Reading does.
No, it's great.
Yeah. So that may be part of a discussion too. So I think the answer is that it has to stand as exactly as it is for the warrant.
I get it.
And there may be things that should come up at town meeting to discuss it.
Well, I'm sure there will be. Won't be me. I don't think I'll need to.
Anything else on 23? All right, let's go to 20. Okay, so this is, of the latest one that you sent out, Fidel, I'm seeing it as page 12 of the Word doc you sent out today. And it extends, it's quite a, couple of three pages. So, want to make a comment, Chris?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. So, I guess for me, to Karen's point, I don't want to beat this ad nauseum for what I've already said, but for new information, I think having Lisa Egan here earlier mentioning her opinion on what should be done, since she deals with business owners on a daily basis, about us just tabling this thing, and I understand that we can't. It has to, even if we 05 the vote right now on it, it still goes to town meeting regardless, so I understand that. I just think I would encourage the climate committee to just take this off of the warrant or whatever they can do to have it removed and delayed for another 6 months till more outreach can be done. For me personally, how she mentioned that, the business owners are busy, they haven't received anything, etc. I think for me, what's more telling is not getting a single email regarding this at all from any businesses to the select board address. Now, I don't know if you have received them individually or another committee has received them and they haven't been forwarded over. But to me, that's very telling that nobody knows about it. And it's not, it's the same thing with the Walgreens lot and all that. I understand that it seems as if we're voting on something that people don't know about yet, but the outreach is going to be done. But I think if you truly want this article to pass, it is not the right time. And if it fails this time, you're not going to get another chance in the future, based off however the vote goes. So I think it is in everyone's best interest to just delay this until April, do the outreach now, all of that. I don't know if I've become the hub for people reporting to me, but now I get phone calls from residents just telling me where they got number 6 today. So someone got sushi the other day, and here it is, the top of the container is number 6, and people just decide that they want to tell me about it now. So
the outreach is working.
the outreach from my people is working, unfortunately. My people can't be everywhere, and I didn't know that I had people, but I have people. It is not baked. It really should be delayed. Like Carlo mentioned before, that it's not the right time. I understand maybe never will be the right time, but based off what Lisa said, for us to just be okay with, we'll work it out, we'll deal with it after they get extensions, I'm not comfortable with that. So for me, I mentioned that I was going to vote, to put this on there, etc. I've reconsidered only because I don't get a vote at town meeting. This is the last opportunity for me to speak on this publicly because the question could get moved, etc. We all know that this and senior center stuff is going to be a night by itself. For me, I would like to pull this out so I can vote no on it now, and that's all I got, other than all my other points from the last 2 times doing this.
Yeah, I agree. I don't need to say anything else. I think I agree with Lisa. I'm glad she came tonight. And I think it should be delayed for a number of reasons, not just because it hasn't been fully fleshed out, but just supply chain, increased costs, everything I've said before. So I hope they're listening and will do the right thing and pull it, because they're the only ones that can pull it. Is that correct, Iria?
So at this point, the warrant closes tonight. You're required to put it on the warrant.
No, at town meeting.
At town meeting, they would make the motion. Theoretically, I guess a town meeting member could move the article. It's never really done that way, though.
Okay. But, okay. Yeah, so I think, I'd love to see a year, but that's maybe asking too much. Was another town meeting. That's my feeling. Thanks.
Other comments?
Yeah, just I understand that our charter requires us to put this on the town meeting agenda. I did talk to some business owners since our last meeting with some concerns about this. I know that the Climate Action Advisory Committee says they plan to do outreach with some meetings next month. I also think it's a great idea to attempt to do that to the town meeting audience as much as possible between now and when town meeting begins. I think the goal here is one that I support, but I also will be curious to see how the continued outreach and certainly the discussion at town meeting might lead to potential adjustments on this. And just I agree with Chris, this will be a robust discussion, I'm sure, so.
Okay.
I am
I'm gonna continue to do my unofficial outreach and research, and I'm so glad I know to avoid six like the plague now. And I went to Trader Joe's today, and they have some non-clamshell tomato options, and I was feeling so guilty about recycling that I just had to get a bunch of tomatoes and carry them like this. And I also accidentally picked up the clamshell, which I was like, oh my god, I bought a sandwich. It was in a clamshell. And I was like, oh. And I'm like, to the cashier, give me that. And I looked at it. It was a 1. I go, okay. So I'm bad because I'm doing a clamshell, but it's a 1, so I can recycle it. So I feel encouraged that I can avoid 6s, and we just need to have it before town meeting, as by charter.
So, thank you. So, I was sharing my meals of the day, but my lunch was at Sweet Green.
Okay.
With a clamshell, fully compostable.
Oh, wow.
With plastic, I'll call it plasticware, utensils, fully compostable. So, are there options? Yes. Is everybody connected to the supply chain for them? No. Is there an opportunity to educate people? I really appreciate Lisa coming in and offering to participate in that. I think that's great. I think that's how it has to happen. I think the only issue that the town meeting may truly have is one of timing. This is set to take effect 6 months after posting, so after town meeting approval. And I think town meeting should see it in this form and be thinking about it. Many other communities have done it. I think that Climate Advisory has done a good job in starting the discussion, and I agree that it needs to go much further and kind of quickly. So now you're hearing all about my salads. I did have a salad from town this week in a container that wasn't marked, but I believe it to be fully compostable. It was the right material, but I searched high and low for a marking on it. I didn't have time to call them today to confirm it or not. But the materials are there. And the notion that, gee, it has to be cheaper, I'm not sure that that's a reality or not. And I think it's one of those things where, given the risks and problems, is it worth similar cost or maybe even a slight premium? And I think that's the purpose of this article, is to kind of say, hey, this is important, we need to make a change, there are some options, but you gotta get hooked up. I'm hoping 6 months is enough time. I'm hoping that the Climate Advisory Committee will connect with Chamber of Commerce and others to work on educating. And obviously the health department, I think, would have a huge role to play here too. So I think that's where it is. So I'm supportive of it as is. So, Chris. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, just one point of clarification. So the bylaw adoption process is a bit complex. The way that it works is when town meeting approves a bylaw, we have that waiting period to see if anyone can collect the requisite number of signatures to have a referendum. If that doesn't happen, then the bylaw gets submitted by the town clerk to the Attorney General's office for review. That can take anywhere between 3 and sometimes even up to 6 months. And then once the AG approves it, it goes back to the town clerk, who then posts it. So in terms of the effective date of the bylaw, we're looking at 6 months from the date that the town clerk posts it after AG approval. So it could be a year. We just don't know. It will depend on how long the AG takes on their review.
And I'm assuming that the language is structured such that although they'll have to do a review, there's nothing glaring that they are likely to throw back. Is it similar to what other communities have done that the AG has approved?
It is similar to what other communities have done. There are some key differences that I'm sure the Reading Climate Advisory Committee can go into detail on. Okay. But I don't see anything here that would warrant a disapproval from the AG's office.
So it's likely 9 to 12 months or so anyway from if town meeting were to approve it.
Yeah, ideally we get the approvals around 9 months, 6 to 9 months, but sometimes they get backed up, so it can be a while.
So the AG provided our delay.
Yeah, fine.
I don't mean that in a bad way.
Nothing happens fast.
All right, so why don't we go through? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
I just have one follow-up to Karen's point about Trader Joe's. Ironically, Trader Joe's is exempt from this bylaw. they don't have to, they wouldn't have to get rid of all the number 6 at their
Trader Joe's
place.
are writing, so the whole,
But what I'm saying is, it's ironic that they would be exempt from this.
what's ironic about it?
That we're gonna pass a bylaw that's gonna prevent polystyrene from being used in Reading, except if Trader Joe's was here, they're okay. Home Depot's okay, Stop and Shop, Market Basket, Staples, they're all okay. The only ones who aren't okay is on Haven and Main Street. Like I said previously, if we
I'm
wanna
not sure
ban
it's
this because it is ironic
Okay.
that you mentioned Trader Joe's, but they're exempt from this
If they're in Reading and they make prepared foods, then they fall into the bylaw, but they're not in Reading, and that's, I don't need to analyze it any further than that. It's just an example.
But number 6 is potentially, probably causing cancer. And it's okay if Trader Joe's does it.
No,
It's
it
okay
isn't.
if Home Depot does it because of this bylaw. They can continue to sell it. It doesn't make sense. They shouldn't, like I said, we should be going all the way or not. Why are we still gonna allow them to do this?
This point definitely came up.
It definitely came up, but like I said, this is the last time I'm gonna be able to potentially voice my opinion on it. And it's not fair to Main Street compared to everybody else that can saddle the cost.
So just to be clear, this, as proposed, this doesn't empower anyone to do it. They may already have the right, but it's not empowering to do it. All right,
Sorry, one more item on that. I do think, and this is just thinking out loud, something I would imagine either the Climate Advisory Committee or the proponents of this would want to be able to answer is, what's the jurisdictional hook that we have here? What gives the board, what gives us the jurisdiction to craft or to propose, or for the Climate Advisory Committee to propose a bylaw that applies to food establishments? Is it because, the town has authority to issue food licenses? And I guess my point is, in trying to make the case for this, I would hope that the proponents will continue to make this case from the science, but also from kind of the cost benefit and from the legal perspective, and where is the town's legal authority to do this for certain businesses but not others?
Is that a question for everyone? Should not.
Yeah, just it's an open question and an open suggestion in advance of town meeting.
In fact,
could I ask Rita to chime in, please?
Yeah, so the legal authority comes from the whole Home Rule Amendment to the Constitution, the Massachusetts Constitution. We have the ability to make rules and regulation that further the public interest. And here, if town meeting and its infinite wisdom decides to pass this bylaw, they would be making a statement that there is a public interest and a public need in regulating these types of containers. And in terms of regulating some businesses and not others, I do think it's not so much the business as how the food is being prepared and distributed. So for example, if a grocery store were to receive food from somewhere else already packaged in number 6, they wouldn't be required to unpackage it and then repackage it in compliant material. But if that same establishment prepared a sandwich at a deli shop for a customer, they would be required to make sure that product is within a compliant container when it leaves the store. So we aren't really looking at it establishment versus establishment. We are looking at it as how is the food being handled.
And it's specific to food service, correct?
Food service, yeah.
Right. So it's not to non-food applications, food applications.
Right. And so, I think the Attorney General has already reviewed very similar bylaws for other communities and has determined that it is within the authority of municipalities to regulate polystyrene in this way. So I'm not concerned that it won't get past the Attorney General's review. Will someone sue? Someone can always sue. Do they have a case is another story.
Chris?
I guess to my point, the reason why the big businesses would be excluded from this is exactly what Ivrea just mentioned. If we would have banned number 6 at Home Depot, they would sue. We would lose because they would dump so much money into this. That is why my guess is we're just deciding to exclude them and only include these other businesses, because if it was about preventing people from getting cancer because of this, we would blanket across Reading. But because you get your hamburger on a number 6 thing at Stop and Shop, that magically is okay. It's not okay for me, but it seems to be okay for this. And I do not understand it one iota why they're exempt and every business on Haven Street, Main Street is not. It makes no sense to me. You can't say you're going to do it for one reason and then we'll exclude all these people. The food's coming in prepared like that? Well, guess what? Don't get your stuff like that anymore. It's banned in Reading. That's it. Sorry. It makes no sense to me. It all comes down to who has the money. And unfortunately, these businesses don't.
So just to kind of come back to the article and the structure, I think that the Climate Advisory Committee is saying that it's in food service where the greatest risk exists, and the focus is food service. So, for example, Home Depot, unless they put a sushi counter in, and I don't think I'd go there if they did, I don't think they'd be covered, anyway in the attempt. So I think that if I'm understanding what other communities are doing, they're saying the risk is in food service, and that's the reason for the focus. And it would apply to, I assume, where Market Basket would be making things in store, they would have to comply.
And I'm a little less cynical in terms of thinking also about the fact that there's an element of interstate commerce at a Market Basket or a Stop and Shop in which a lot of that stuff is packaged not only outside of Reading but outside of the state. And I don't think it's, I recognize the frustration, but I also, without really any knowledge of how this works in other towns, I think there's also an element of federalism here too. And that, if we were to say, well, number 6 banned everywhere, part of why we're opening ourselves up to a lawsuit is not because of money and power, it's because of, interstate commerce and, the fact that, federal law prevents or at least looks, really critically on efforts to, regulations that have the effect of hurting that, so.
Yeah, and Jackie, just to echo that, in my research and review of this bylaw and others, I was not aware, I was unable to find any case in which a Massachusetts town regulated anything that was produced outside their borders. And I think that it's for that exact reason that communities don't want to open up the door to arguments around interference with interstate commerce. So most of, or all of the bylaws I have seen really just look at how is the food handled within the establishment, and how is it provided to the customer.
I think we're there. So how do you have motions set, Chris? Do you have individual ones?
I just have a blanket,
Yeah.
so
Right.
I would feel more comfortable just pulling out one.
Okay.
Sorry.
So just to be clear, I'm guessing that the article you're suggesting we hold out is Article 20?
Yes.
Any others that, any requests to hold out? Okay, if that's the case, can you make a motion that is for Articles 1 through 19 and 21 through 23?
Yep.
Please.
Move to close the warrant articles containing 1 through 19 and 21 to 23 for subsequent town meeting to place on the November 14th, 2022 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? None appearing. Okay, let's vote on that motion. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? We are 5-0 on that motion. And now could you make a motion specific to Article 20, please?
Yep. Move to close the warrant containing Article 20 for subsequent town meeting to place on the November 14th, 2022 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion? Carl?
Thank you. I just wish the Climate Advisory Committee did a little bit more work on this, because I would have felt a lot better about it. It feels like a copy and paste bylaw for me. You know, other towns are doing it, so we should do it. I get the science angle of it, but I just wish they took more time on creating and trying to implement a new bylaw that's gonna affect so many small businesses and not the big box guys. So that's all I have to say.
So I'd just like to say I've written bylaws and gotten them passed for this town, and town council is quite expensive, so in the interest of being expedient and fiscally responsible and knowing it has to go to the AG, I would cut the climate advisory committee a little slack on this. They looked at bylaws that have already been approved by the AG so that they could limit the amount of review by council and the bylaw committee, and I think that's a really smart way to do bylaws. It's a different perspective.
Yeah, sure, agree to disagree, sure.
If I could suggest a parry on this also, that given that this, if it passes through us, ends up on the warrant, goes to town meeting, which we know it will, there's an opportunity for the Climate Advisory Committee to be hearing some of the concerns being raised and to do what they can to start the education process, to get the discussion going, to suggest alternatives, which I know is already started. In that way, kind of get a head start on things. So maybe that's a kind of a pairing. Chris?
And I guess my comment on this is when you're gonna pass a bylaw in Reading that's gonna affect small businesses, the first person you go to was already here earlier today, and I would love to know if they actually went to her. Because the way that she spoke, I don't think they did. And that is a massive misstep. It's the outreach. I understand town council costs money and whatnot. It's the outreach, letting all these businesses know, hey, by the way, this is gonna happen. Are you able to plan in advance? How much is all this gonna change things, et cetera? We just saw the Green Tomato close, which is a bad mark on Reading for the way that that's going down. And obviously it doesn't have to do with this, but it has to do with cost. And we're gonna just saddle these small businesses with a higher cost in the name of saving lives, which I somewhat agree with to a point. Except if I'm getting hamburger meat at a grocery store, I'm not saving lives anymore because it's Tuesday night. It makes no sense to me, but thank you.
We ready for a vote?
One more thing, just because we're in session. So I made notes. I agree that yes, it would be good to do outreach with the chamber. Jackie, you also had a suggestion about additional outreach. There is a forum coming up. Did you have another suggestion that I could pass along to the climate advisory committee?
Well, I just think to town meeting members.
Oh, town meeting members.
You know,
Thank you.
and materials in the lead up.
Thank you. That's it. I'll pass these along to the climate advisory committee. All right, thanks.
As a professor, I'm now a big fan of short YouTube videos as a way to communicate.
Okay, make a video. Make
Great idea, Mark.
A video.
You know, maybe I'll add that to the future agenda. See how it works out.
So long as it's not your sixth one.
Yes, don't you worry.
All right, thank
So that
you.
was a joke on number 6, but anyway, sorry. Okay, so we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion on Article 20, raise your hand. And those opposed? We are 3-2. All right, now back to the top. Whoops, sorry. Back to the agenda. Grove Street Lot 5 update. So maybe I'll start, you wanna follow, Fidel? So the board had asked kind of for an update in terms of what's going on, because it's been several months. A survey was undertaken by Weston and Sampson. It ended up taking a lot more time due to their supply chain backlog, if you will, than we had anticipated. Then there was a desire to run it past the state on kind of some environmental issues, and we got some guidance. And that led to a different drawing, and we're still awaiting kind of their additional guidance just to make sure that we've complied with what their concerns might be. The goal from there is, once we felt we were in that position, would be to initiate a discussion with Meadowbrook, which we have done, and we'll do something in mid-October to talk to them. But we wanted to make sure that we understood kind of the environmental guidelines first before we did that. There are other things that you wanna talk about, outreach and a few other things?
Sure, yeah, so page 98 in the packet shows a very preliminary drawing of what Weston and Sampson put together for this parking lot. As you can see, it's 18 spots because of the public parking lot. We legally have to have 2 handicap spots, and we also put a little placeholder for portable bathrooms. The big caveat here is that it has to be approved by the National Heritage, which has jurisdiction over this area, and we have started the permitting process, but it's through a state agency that we don't know exactly how long that's going to take. So that process has happened. Chuck Tyrone has been involved in the process, and he has shown this drawing to the direct abutters, so the residents across the street. However, there's probably a lot more outreach that we have to do. We will probably run it by the Town Forest Committee, Trails Committee, etc. I did want to say that ahead of this meeting, there's a second component which is the easement that connects from lot 5 into the town forest, and that is a legal process that has to be negotiated with Meadowbrook. That's a process where ERIA is involved, and I want to be sensitive to the fact that we don't want to put Meadowbrook in a hard spot by showing something that is not fully baked yet, if you will. So this is very preliminary, and will require a lot of conversations. But as the chair said, we just wanted to come up with an update.
Any questions or comments, Chris?
Thanks, Mark. I guess for me, just seeing this, I to your point, Fidel, it does, in my opinion, put us in a negative bargaining position, only because we have all these drawings done, and all of this hinges on Meadowbrook. If Meadowbrook doesn't happen, none of this stuff, Chuck reaching out, doing all this stuff, all the money, all the time, none of it matters without Meadowbrook. So, like, I'm not sure how we get around that, if there's a plan B, or maybe we should stop talking about it, I guess. Like,
well, so just to be clear, the initial discussions involved asking for what are our thoughts, what are we planning?
Mm-hmm.
So we needed to go forward in discussions with them. They agreed to allow us on the property to do a survey. That was the agreed upon plan. Maybe the step that was added into here was to make sure that we would get approval, I cannot make sure, have the best chance of getting approval from National Heritage. Because without that, that's really the dead stopper. And if they just kind of said, nope, doesn't matter, then that's done. So that was kind of the thought. And it took a lot longer. I think we had hoped to be talking with Meadowbrook in May. And this is September, and we'll be meeting in October. Not that it wasn't an issue from them, it was an issue that we couldn't get the survey done, and then we talked to National Heritage and the state to make sure that we had something that could be possible. So then the next step will be to start discussions again with Meadowbrook. I think that this gives them a bit more certainty of what we're thinking about, and allows us to have discussions at that point.
are we going to reach out as well to the community? Because, like I said, in my opinion, this was already a done deal that it's a parking lot, etc. But no outreach has been done, as far as I know, to find out what could go here.
So initially, the outreach did go to Trails, Town Forest, Conservation. In terms of, if you remember kind of our early meetings, that's where the feedback came in terms of what the ideal scenario would be for here. So that was kind of the plan that we had going forward. But in terms of, did we consider other uses? Only to the extent we had quick discussions about it. I think the notion was, we'd love to have access into the town forest to get people off of Grove Street and to see what those options might look like, and then to be working with Meadowbrook to see what kind of a solution we can discuss.
And in order, so who is the I don't wanna say the forest team, who's the people that had to get, like, why would they deny something like this right out of, like, I don't know what the background is, like, is it because we're knocking down trees, et cetera, and this is a town forest, so they have approval?
Yeah, it's the National Heritage and Endangered Species Program. And it says on their website, it's responsible for conservation and protection of hundreds of species that are not hunted, fished, trapped, or commercially harvested in the state, as well as the protection of natural communities that make up their habitats. So it was essentially a habitat protection, and they need to authorize this before it moves forward.
And they have or have not yet?
Have
They
not yet, but they have provided some guidance. For example, I believe the material selection for the surface was a concern, and that's been addressed because we had a heads up to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the fourth iteration of them providing feedback. Like the first one was, and just with the parking lot to be parallel with the paper, right? And they asked us to move it to a certain degree, and then originally this is the fourth iteration of their feedback.
And there's no blue salamanders in this entire area over here?
So no, if I understand the situation is there are kind of setbacks almost that are prescribed, and we're within a certain area, which is what makes it in their jurisdiction. And so that's why we have to get permission to do it, otherwise we can't. And there were changes in kind of the specific location of spots, the materials used. Those are the ones I'm familiar with. You're probably familiar with many more, Fidel.
Yeah, no, I mean, Chuck Taroni is very familiar with it. I mean, I'll have him do an update to the board, written update to the board.
I don't know that that's necessary, but you could call him and just ask him these questions. I don't know that I need an update. I trust Chuck and I know he works hard and you got, I think you've done an excellent job, Mark, by the way, while I stole the floor, sorry.
That, I think Fidel has been, and Chuck actually have been
Yes,
driving
Chuck, I'm sorry,
very,
Fidel.
very well.
Yep.
And reaching out, I think, to abutters who, initially had some concerns and kind of getting their input already.
I'm not a blue salamander expert, I only brought it up because that was what was mentioned prior, and I guess I'll get an update like from Chuck, from Fidel. I don't think, I'm sure the board's gonna get more of this stuff as stuff goes on anyway. I guess my last question is, do we still know if we have to make this ADA compliant or not? Because obviously that will swing the money financially one way or the other.
So it's a gray area. So if we're saying it's a public parking lot, which we are, right? Then we need to provide ADA parking spots. But it doesn't mean that the entire parking lot has to be ADA accessible. It means that those spots have to be accessible. So what other places like this have done is that they just pave the parking the handicap spots, right? I mean, so and they use not asphalt. They use kind of dense material, right? I mean, what is shown is compliant.
All right, so that's why they're a different shade
exactly
compared to everything else.
Okay. But it doesn't mean that the whole thing is going to be asphalted or it's just the two spots have to be ADA compliant.
All right, yeah, no, like, I know that Grove Street needs this over there. I fully understand. It's a death trap to anyone going around that corner. So I know it's been needed for a while. So I appreciate it, Mark.
Gives us a little flavor as to why we're not trying to build a senior center over there too. The whole area, like over by the water, the old water treatment plant is like entirely very sensitive, so yeah, that's why. That's why it's a beautiful open field.
So the goal tonight really was just to kind of give the board an update based on the request saying, hey, what's going on? So that's what's going on. And hopefully we'll hear back from National Heritage soon. And we'll, in any event, we'll be talking now with whoever.
I just have a quick question. Curious, is National Heritage a state agency or a nonprofit?
It's a state agency.
Well, federal, if it has national in it.
So it's I mean, I don't know if Ivia knows anything about this. I certainly do not, but it is a division of Mass DEP.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe they're carrying out a federal directive, but it's managed and operated at the local level.
Gotcha.
And remember, we do have the funds that our legislators were able to secure for us to work in this space. So hopefully we'll take it to the next step. All right, I think those are the agenda items. Let's go to future agendas. Any future agenda items? We're not meeting next week, right?
We can if you want to.
Yeah, let's do it.
Can Jackie give us a seminar on like interstate commerce?
I think that's a one-on-one discussion.
Find out what New York is doing and copy it.
We're not meeting next
I'm
week?
really interested in that.
All right, I have a future agenda item if that's okay.
Please.
Can we get the future meetings on our, they disappeared from the packet.
Yeah.
Oh,
The sheet.
Yeah,
Laid
just so
out.
I can
They're in the
Yeah.
plan
July
events
19th
or plan.
packet.
Okay, we're meeting this Tuesday, so I know I can't do an event on this Tuesday. Yeah, I was assuming we're meeting next week, because this was like kind of a special meeting for the warrant, so I thought we were meeting, that'd be our,
Yeah, the next meeting is October 11th, is the next meeting.
not until the 11th.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, technically tomorrow, but
Sure.
Well,
Financial forum.
you know what I mean, yeah, okay. So if we could put that back in, Caitlin, that'd be great.
Yep.
I think we had agreed we would put it on our select board page.
it's
That'd be great. And Fidel sent us on a week ago tonight a draft schedule for 2023. When did that start? It started in 2023. Okay, so we need the pieces before that too, please.
Absolutely.
I agree. It's a great planning tool just to make sure that we're all
Because
seeing all the
we had
dates.
future agenda stuff on there, or,
Yeah,
Yeah,
to
just-
your point, that fell off.
yeah,
That would be
I
great.
don't know what happened, yeah.
That was kind of a placeholder for future agenda items, and I think that's a great point. Bring that back. That way, hopefully, we'll have another way to remind ourselves.
Yep. Yeah, our next meeting is October 11th, and just to give you a preview, Recalc right now has penciled in for an update. That we'll see if they are ready for that. And that's really the only item.
So,
Please.
the select board, yeah, if we could update the select board page as well, that one's out of date. There is one there, but it's out of date. For schedule, then we have a couple places to go, and so does the public. So I know we have an executive session coming up, and I had asked about an executive session for an update in 186 Summer. Could we make that a 2-item executive session?
Sounds good.
Okay, I just don't want it to get run.
Who is next in terms of departments, committees to present to us? We should bring the next two forward.
Yeah, so Recalc is coming on the 11th, but potentially, and then Victor is coming on the 25th, and then we essentially have a town meeting. At the last meeting, I was asked to squeeze in Sudeshna for an update. So it might be on November 15th. We'll see. But that's where, yeah, that's what we're trying to line up right now. And then in December, we have budgets. So the meetings in December, the 7th, 13th, and 14th are usually dedicated to reviewing the budgets, department budgets for FY24.
And then if anything else kind of pops, obviously.
So what was you thinking on the ice arena, early January, because it needs to be renewed in March? Is that enough time?
I reached out to them. They are aware, and I will follow up.
Okay, thanks, thank you.
Maybe if you don't hear back, let's take a look at what would work for us and see if that did work for them too.
It's gonna get crazy in December.
Yeah. Yep. Other items?
Can't think of any right now.
Invariably, we start with a very small list, and by the time we review it, it's full. Okay. No minutes, is that correct, or yes minutes? No minutes, because it was just last week. Okay, any other business before us? Not appearing, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Thanks, Karen. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, 5-0, we are adjourned.